Hello everyone, welcome to the Game Junk podcast for July 2013. This is episode number 16, and my name is Sean.
My name is Frank.
My name is Andrew.
And joining us, very special guest. You may know him from the Film Junk podcast, Mr. Jay Chill. Welcome to the show.
Hey, I gotta say, guys, this is really cool.
How you liking it?
This is really cool.
How you liking it so far?
I'm loving it so far.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So coming up, we've got our recap of E3 2013, but we've also got our first group review in a while, which is The Last of Us. And of course, Jay and Frank are the two who have actually finished the game, so that should be interesting. And I know for you, Jay, you don't finish a ton of games like myself.
Yeah.
Must have been a pretty big deal for you.
It was an achievement. I think actually it's odd because the last game I finished as well was also a Naughty Dog game, right? Uncharted?
Yeah. Nice.
I only complete Naughty Dog games.
That's saying something. Okay, so I guess just, for people who don't know, facebook.com/gamejunk is the Facebook page. We post news from time to time, so you might want to check that out. Or twitter.com/gamejunkpodcast and gamejunkpodcast.com. So all those things will get you Game Junk information whenever you need it. Anything you guys want to plug before we get things started? Is there any projects percolating?
I can plug some stuff. The Steam sale started today officially, and Mutant Blob's Attack is $2, so everyone should go pick it up. Great price. Also, for our European listeners, Guacamelee is on sale right now. I think it's half price or roughly half price, and that's till July 17th. So people should be able to hear this before then, I think.
You could probably mention Waveform is on sale half price
yeah, right,
as well.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. Waveform 50% off too as well.
Nice. Some good stuff.
I'll just say check out the Lost Orbit page on Facebook. Like it. I've been working on that game here and there. Give it a like for me. Say Frank brought you here.
So if I go to google.com and I type in Lost Orbit
Facebook.
Oh, but I gotta type Facebook?
I don't know.
Well, what's the official?
I just told you to.
What's the official Lost Orbit website? Is that something else?
I don't think it exists yet.
Oh, it
sure
does.
Yeah?
There it is.
Oops.
Nice. Frank.
Way to know your product. Well, I could say go to Citizens of Earth Facebook page. Facebook.com/Citizens
check it out
of Earth
and like
game.
say it's because of me.
If I Google Citizens of Earth, what am I going to get?
Everything, man.
Eden Industries.
Oh, yeah.
And the Facebook page. There
Big
you go.
time. Yep.
All right, so check those out.
And a shout out to our buddy Dax's Bravo Man web series, animated series. Check it out.
We forgot to do that last time, so definitely check it out. And is it bravoman.com? Let me just Google Bravo Man.
All these links will be in the show notes. Very well prepared plugs.
Shiftylook.com is where you can find all of the webcomics that include Bravo Man. So.
And the animated series.
Right.
Jay, anything? You plug
I
in?
want to plug the Film Junk podcast. And if anyone has any hot tips on Tony Hawk HD, I know I asked you a little while ago. Waiting for a price drop. What's the deal?
I think there was a sale. I got it when there was a sale last year, I think. Or no,
Really?
maybe I didn't.
Didn't you buy it through the Summer of Arcade or
Yeah, I
something?
think that's what I did.
Not through PlayStation Plus.
No.
Which reminds me, remember when I was pissed off because all my games, when the membership ends, they go away, and then I was like, oh, actually because the only reason I bought it was for The Simpsons, and it was still there. I'm like, oh, it didn't go away. Tried to play it the other day, and it just said like pay for full version. So it just like downgraded it to the
demo.
The demo.
If you had bought PlayStation Plus again for like 3 months or whatever the bare minimum, it would have unlocked for you again.
Yeah, I'll pay $20 every 3 months to play the Simpsons arcade game.
Well, now that you're back into gaming, you might want to consider it again. That's
Only
all I'm
Naughty
saying.
Dog games.
Well, if you had a Vita, there's Uncharted on that, but I guess
It's
that's
not Naughty Dog.
All right, so
Let's
we
get
got
into this
lots
shit.
of stuff to talk about. Let's start with E3 2013. Obviously, last time we did a show, Xbox One had just been revealed.
It's weird that it was only a month ago. It feels like a year since E3.
Yeah,
I don't remember a goddamn thing.
me neither. I don't even remember
That's why I
what
brought
happened.
my notes.
Yeah, I mean, we really should have done it immediately after E3. But anyway, so Xbox One was revealed, but there was a lot of people, kind of underwhelmed by what they showed. Seemed to be, a lot of TV, sports, stuff that's not for hardcore gamers.
You're talking about at the console reveal, not E3.
Right.
Yes.
E3 rolls around. Microsoft has their press conference. What happened? Were you guys blown away? Did they silence the naysayers, or what do you think?
I was actually really excited by it. There was lots of announcements which kind of catered to me. Some spiritual successors to older games like Crimson Dragoon and other things which probably aren't the big blockbusters other people are looking for, but piqued my interest quite a bit.
You love saying that.
What?
They're probably not the big blockbusters everyone else is looking for, but these are the ones I want to play.
Well, it's true, Jay. And I thought they showed a lot of exclusive games that looked really interesting. Some I may mention in my top 5, but I believe that Titanfall is exclusive to Xbox and PC.
Right.
And
I got a list here.
Go for them, Huck City.
Below, which I think is Cappy.
Yep. Capybara.
Crimson Dragon, like you mentioned. D4, which is episodic survival horror game or murder mystery game, which sounded interesting to me. Dead Rising 3, Forza 5, whatever the new Halo is. Killer Instinct.
Yeah.
Connect Sports Rivals. Sure, you're going to pick
really
that
excited for that.
Quantum Break, Project Spark,
Project Spark looked pretty interesting. I thought
if you like creating content, but I do that every day, so.
Ooh.
I did it. Rabbids Invasion, the Rise game, Son of Rome,
which didn't look that good during the press conference, but everything I've been hearing about it after the fact has been really reassuring.
Yeah. Sunset Overdrive
Looks amazing.
Zumba Party Fitness, and whatever that Black Tusky game is that they teased. That Black Tusk is working on a game.
I don't
They didn't
remember
say.
that.
They just showed the Black Tusk logo and said, "New game coming from Black Tusk," and that was it.
So that's still a lot of exclusive stuff.
Sure is.
And they led with Metal Gear 5.
Which looked incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there was something about that game that I can't remember. As I was watching, I should have taken notes, because as I was watching it, it reminded me of another game.
Red Dead Redemption?
Well, yeah, because they had the horses. There was something else, though, I thought. I don't know.
I think it was Red Dead.
Are you guys
on my notes, I have, quote, Red Dead Solid, unquote.
Oh, there you go.
It could have
So, is that something you guys are definitely looking forward to?
Yeah, it looks amazing.
Yeah, big time. The one thing I think I really liked about that is that was the one demo that I knew for sure was real time. And that impressed me, because a lot of the other ones, they do more. I think we talked about last show how there's all these like CG, potentially CG, they hide the HUD, whatever. You don't know if it's an actual gameplay or if it's just a CG cutscene. And that one, you could tell they were definitely playing it, or someone had been playing it. So that really impressed me.
Well, what about the big announcement of Kiefer Sutherland voicing Snake? Pretty huge, right?
Sure. Canadian.
Isn't he replacing a Canadian too?
I think so. So are you guys aren't offended that David Hayter is not returning to reprise his role?
No.
Wow.
Is that a big deal?
Yeah, I think it is for Metal Gear Solid fans. I mean, I don't care, but thought you guys would be more passionate about it.
They actually
this.
sound kind of similar, to be honest.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. I don't think it's as big a deal as...
I think Konami is just, they're going for the celebrity, status. They're they're barking up the wrong tree,
I did like...
Konami are a bunch of star fuckers.
I did like the fast forward style of the demo they showed, so that you didn't have to waste so much time with them just riding the horse from point A to point B. They fast forward through it. I don't know if you guys remember that. Then
probably indicating that it wasn't being played real time.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could tell
it was real time gameplay. I understand what you're saying.
Jeez, give me a break, man.
Fuck you. You came at me first.
Jay just brings hostility to the room. Get out of here, Jay.
All right, next up, what else?
So I missed some section here, so there could have been something. But then they did the section on 360 and World of Tanks, Max, The Curse of Brotherhood, which looked like Trine, apparently. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah, I think it's part of the Summer of Arcade as well.
Yeah. Dark Souls 2, which looked good. And then that was really it. They spent a lot of time on World of Tanks, which I had never really heard of before. I guess
I've seen commercials on TV for World of Tanks.
Yeah?
Yeah. Jay, you play World of Tanks? It's a free tank shooter online.
Does it update on Facebook?
It's not...
Only Candy Crush for me.
Okay.
I don't play Candy Crush. I just like statuses of other people who are playing Candy Crush.
That's like playing the game.
Yeah.
It'll probably happen with all the console games eventually, though, right?
Oh, for sure.
Status updates.
Oh, yeah. That's true.
Well, that's the whole share button on the PlayStation, right? So
yeah.
I'm sure Xbox will have that. And then they went into the X-Bone Rise. They showed a bunch of, which I thought just looked like Call of Duty meets, or like the Call of Duty Beach. What was it? D-Day.
Yeah.
Call of Duty.
God of War meets God of War.
Yeah, exactly.
It's supposed to have a little more of the strategic combat, like the classic Roman tortoise defense and stuff like
Roman
that.
Total War kind of stuff.
Yeah, it seems like it could be good.
Yeah, and use the shields to form that big shield against the arrows and stuff. Yeah,
that's the tortoise defense.
Yeah, I think my problem with what I saw of it is it looked like you don't really do anything. You just give them voice commands and then everything kind of happens for you.
Yeah, I admit what they showed at the press conference wasn't that good, but
you've been hearing buzz.
On-floor reports are headed towards the positive, Sean.
I thought it looked good. I definitely agree with Sean, though. I wasn't blown away with the gameplay they showed. It did just look like God of War gameplay, essentially.
All right, let's beat that. We got to get to the major
Killer
fight
Instinct. That was just really quick, I think. Didn't they just show something?
It was more
really
the
quick?
announcement. Then.
Yeah. Sunset Overdrive, which is that stylized MMO shooter from Insomniac.
Yeah.
Then Forza 5, where they love saying Drivatar.
Drivatar. That was the big new word.
Yeah, so
which actually you got to admit sounds pretty cool, Mr. AI over here.
Yeah, I love letting the game play for me, and then
the idea of generating AI through other people playing online. That's kind of cool.
But then they talked about how you send your car out into the world and it gains experience for you and stuff. So essentially, it plays the game for you.
I love this idea.
Achievements for free.
That's kind of cool.
So then after that, they went into indie stuff. They talked about Minecraft again. They showed Quantum Break, which is definitely a more in-depth trailer than they went into before. And I thought this trailer was a lot better than the previous one they showed. And I guess, did you guys read about this game? It's supposed to be like a hybrid TV show meets game thing. And they put the TV show on the disc. And then the game is also on the disc.
So what's the...
Well, did you see the original full motion video? It was from the Xbox console announcement. They showed the movie.
Yeah. And
then there was that boat breaking through the bridge.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And the TV show just looked horrendous.
Yeah.
But it looked like Sega CD full motion video level acting. Tom Zito has directed better video game performances than this.
But are the TV
pretty sure
show
that's the director of Sewer Shark? Just
Are the TV show and the game connected, or is it just that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like what they're trying to do with Defiance. Have you heard about Defiance? No.
No.
Anyways,
there's a TV show Defiance in a game that are...
Yeah, there's like an MMO that runs parallel with the show kind of thing. They're just doing this now.
But like, we're not talking interactive TV, right? Like,
No.
You're just talking about
Like Captain
stories.
Power?
Yeah, like that's what I was hoping you were gonna say. But so this is just like storylines, kind of in the universe of the game, and new episodes coming out.
You just gave me an idea what they should do.
Which is
Bring back Nightmare on video game consoles. I won't even have to bring the board out. I can just play Nightmare like with a virtual board.
Like what's that iToy game with the?
That's a good idea. I miss Nightmare. The days of Nightmare.
All right.
Did you play Nightmare, Jay?
I did, yeah.
Yeah? Which was your favorite?
Which?
Yeah, Nightmare 1,
There was-
2, 3, 4. I like 2 with Baron Samedi.
what
It was a little funnier, a little more.
Atmosphere, wasn't that?
That was the sequel to Nightmare, yeah.
yeah, that was good too.
I think I played Atmosphere as well.
All solid.
Yeah.
Okay, after Quantum Break was that D4 episodic murder mystery game. It looked interesting to me, but obviously didn't leave a lasting impression on anyone.
I think I took a shit during that.
And then they went into detail about Project Spark, which you want to talk about that since you're probably the most excited for it.
It's interesting that online everyone's saying, oh, this is Microsoft ripping off Little Big Planet. It seems to be the general consensus, which I thought they were bringing some new stuff to the table. But then on top of that, we've gone over this on several.
I thought it looked a lot more in depth than Big Planet stuff.
And it seemed very responsive. It could have been a canned demo. I don't know if it is that responsive. It's intriguing. But we've talked about this for a long time on this podcast. Sony is also our master ripper offers. And I've always said they've ripped a lot of things off and improved them and made them better. So PS fanboys who are I am too, but that are like attacking that as well. They're just ripping off Little Big Planet.
Who's wearing the PlayStation 4 shirt right now, right?
Sony has been ripping stuff off for a long time too. Like Uncharted when it first came out was pretty much their version of Gears of War with some Tomb Raider elements.
What?
They took the cover system from Gears of War.
I don't know about that.
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Yeah, everyone did though after that.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just saying.
Okay,
Everyone rips everyone else off. Let's not.
I mean, the idea of these games that have creation tools, that's not exclusive to Little Big Planet. I would say Little Big Planet definitely popularized it, but we're going to see more of that, I think. So,
regardless of that, it looked really good. And if anyone's seen any demos for like the Crytek engine, they do real-time editing like that in their game tool, or in their editor. So it's possible to do this kind of stuff. I'm sure it's definitely possible on next-gen systems. So I don't think it being like some canned demo is really an issue. I think it definitely could run like that.
Do you think we're almost heading to a point in the future where like editors and consoles are one and the same?
In consoles? You mean
in
the
consoles,
games?
yeah. Like you would develop, like essentially it's kind of getting there now, right? Like you can make a game on the PC, play it on the PC real time. Will you be able to do that on the console itself?
Well, you kind of do that with, don't they have the RPG Maker on
sure, yeah.
Sony and
there's
stuff,
lots of
on
stuff.
PlayStation?
It just, what I'm more saying is a point where a lot of game creators themselves might just make
tools,
a tool, and make a game with that tool, and kind of release the tool with a game they made with that tool.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens
possible
with a lot of PC games,
Exactly.
for sure. But
do you think that trend will push itself onto consoles more in the future?
maybe.
I don't know, because
I personally, when I'm playing consoles, I don't want to make stuff.
Yeah, I know, I don't either, but people obviously do. Little Big Planet's huge, right? So I don't think so. Like, I don't think at the scale of like what id does with their tools, and even like Bethesda with Skyrim mods and stuff. But it's definitely possible that people will try to do that.
I think the content creation on consoles is kind of a fad. I don't think it's. I remember in Infamous 2 had a.
Oh yeah, create your own missions.
Yeah,
or something,
mission
right?
editor and stuff like that, and I don't think that kind of stuff really
Well, I think
gets them a return.
It depends on the game, I think. Like sometimes it's just like an extra thing to throw in that nobody's going to use. But if the game's built around that, which obviously Project Spark seems to be, then
we'll see.
So then they talked about background multiplayer loading. I don't know what that means.
It'll match. You can play a different game while it's matchmaking.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's what that was.
But we'll get into this later with the Microsoft changes. This is seeming less possible.
Yeah. And then they showed a Killer Instinct fight where that guy had the worst commentary ever. Upload Studio, automatic game DPR.
Keep
going. That's like do your Twitch TV stuff.
Yeah.
Like, and then broadcast on Twitch. No more 100 friend limit.
Yay.
The Microsoft points are changing to money. Xbox Live Goal for the console, not a particular user, which is pretty good, I think, for most people with multiple people. And then they did the Crimson Dragon, which
had no audio.
Yeah, demo completely sputtered out and died.
And then the next guy came on, and it happened to him. It's like, are we doing this? Are we doing this right now? Are we still doing it?
how embarrassing.
Well, which guy was that? He was...
that was...
was that Quantum Break?
No, was that Titanfall? I don't know.
No.
Either way. So then after that, they did Dead Rising 3, which I think looked awesome. No.
Every time a Dead Rising game is announced, I think maybe this will be the version of Dead Rising I actually wanted in the first place, but I'm losing more confidence every time.
Yeah. I really liked the first one, but it definitely you had to really dive into that mechanic and buy into it before you would, I think, like it.
It can be frustrating.
Yeah, the whole time thing was kind of messed up. They showed The Witcher 3, Battlefield 4. It was the Battlefield 4 one.
Right.
I thought that looked really good. What Lies Below. Oh, that's the Cappy game they showed. And then the Halo trailer.
Which I thought was a pretty good canned
Yeah,
teaser trailer. I thought it looked cool.
I guess.
Fuck, it looks pretty good, dude. Relax.
I don't have anything written down, but I remember thinking it was
What?
a ripoff of like Star Wars Episode 1 or something with the sand dunes and the Sarlacc pit monster. And
I think it was just
Episode 1 Sarlacc Pit?
Whatever.
Who is this guy?
Sorry, I'm not a regular on Film Junk.
Oh, did I say Star Trek or Star
I think it was just creating mystery because you see sand, you don't think of Halo, right? And then eventually it's
And
Halo.
then people were like chirping, why do you need to cover your face with a cloth when you have this impenetrable spacesuit?
There's lots of grooves in there. You don't want sand in it.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Makes perfect sense.
Then they announced November release with the $500 price tag.
Now that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, let's
you wanna come
do
back to that with
PS4
Sony?
and
Yeah.
then we'll get into the war.
Yeah.
Which is a farce.
So after that, they showed Titanfall, which apparently won basically every E3 award.
Which
given out
surprises
by-
me.
Yeah, it
because I
surprised
didn't
me
think
too.
it looked that amazing.
Yeah, it looked like a shooter with mechs, but apparently game journalists have hard-ons for mech games.
Well, are they saying it's gameplay like it's awesome, or
Everything.
I think
Multiplayer.
I think it looks cool, but my issue is just it looks kind of generic. But I think the majority of the acclaim is just coming because it's Respawn Entertainment. It's the people who left
Infinity Ward.
and went to do their own thing.
and it's only online, which is
right.
Which was fine at this point in time. Yeah, then they talked about... Oh, wait, maybe this is just my own note. But anyways, the always on DRM stuff. Yeah, and that's it, really, for them. I think they ended on Titanfall.
Yeah, I think so. So then it was the next day was PS4, or was it the same
That
day?
evening.
That evening?
Yep. So then Trenton walks in.
You got a
What a pimp that guy is, eh? Jeez.
What do you think, Jay? Pimp?
Total pimp. He loves mechs too. They call him the Mexican.
Okay. And they, started talking about Vita stuff. They made some game announcements, which apparently I didn't write down. Some remakes for the Vita, Walking Dead, Skype, Netflix, YouTube, and
Skype remake.
Yeah, Skype. No, having Skype on it. I don't know what the game announcements were. Then they went on to the PS3. They talked about The Last of Us, which I think at this point in time it hadn't been released yet.
Correct.
And then they did the Puppeteer teaser.
Which I'm hearing very good things about.
Yeah. Rain teaser trailer, which also seems to be getting a lot of...
What was
This was the indie portion, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, this was just the PS3 portion.
What was Rain again? Because I remember
the one
that.
where you're invisible and all you see is when it's raining, you see the drops on your shoulders and stuff. And you know where you are when you go out into the rain.
I don't know.
I don't remember
I
that.
thought I remembered it, but maybe I don't.
I don't know. It looked... From what I saw, I don't really know anything else, but it looked kind of like Ico, except in rain.
Oh, okay. Right. That does sound familiar.
Then they talked about Beyond Two Souls, which was completely different from what they showed before. Because they showed her basically doing military training or police training. Whereas before you didn't... I don't know, she was just like... It almost looked like she was just some kid on a train. Or
I thought
young
the other
adult.
one was she was like kind of trapped in a room and her psychic powers were fired up.
Was this the one on the train? Anyways, I thought it looked awesome.
Well, you have a hard on for...
Yeah, of course. Heavy Rain. Jay,
Quantum-
you're gonna be picking up this game, Jay. This is by the guys who...
I can't wait
Made
till we
Heavy
talk
Rain.
about Heavy Rain.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Yeah, write this one down.
Is this a prequel? Rain?
No.
What is that what you're talking about?
They're two different games. Rain is not related to Heavy Rain.
No.
Unfortunately.
Light Rain. It's Light Rain. Then they talked about GT6. And... Yeah, I wasn't impressed with it, but... Looked like a normal CG car trailer.
This is
that I
them-
always show.
I tune out anytime there's a racing game on.
This is them saying, like, fulfilling that we haven't abandoned PS3 yet,
Yeah,
even
right.
though they have.
Yeah. Then they showed Batman Origins, saying they have exclusive costumes. I don't know why Sony put so much emphasis on these shitty little exclusive things.
Well, even
like that.
Microsoft does too. We have a exclusive window for Call of Duty DLC. That actually might be
Right,
a big
but
deal because so many people
But
play that.
Sony emphasized it more in their E3 press conference.
Yeah,
like a lot. There's quite a few. And then they closed out the PS3 section with the GTA 5 bundle with headset, which I guess is a big deal to some people.
Nice.
That's huge.
Yep. Then they went on to the PS4 and they revealed the console, and I thought it looked surprisingly similar to the X-Bone and the Rogers Nextbox 2.0.
That's what I was the most shocked by out of all of E3.
Yeah.
All I keep hearing about is how slick PS4 looks. Oh, look at that console. They have like the same design, half shiny, half matte, with like a line dividing the two. The only difference is one's a parallelogram and one's a rectangle.
Well, we'll get to this, but it's starting to feel more and more like they're the same console, really.
Yeah.
But continue.
Are parallelograms that big a deal? I mean, they're cool. They have a lot of cool angular properties, but...
Well, you got to set yourself apart from the Xbox.
So we put it on a slant. Do you feel the same way, Sean, that they look remarkably similar?
I do.
Okay.
Consensus. Then they talked a bit about their music and video stuff. Basically just doing... Everyone's chasing Netflix type stuff. Redbox Instant. The Order, which was by Ready at Dawn, which is the guys who did the God of War games on the PSP.
I'm pretty sure when I had an interview with Ready at Dawn, and they were talking about working on
The Order?
a next-gen title, which I'm assuming is this.
Yeah, I thought it looked good, but I wasn't really jacked up about it. This is the one that was set in like the 1500s or whatever.
The Order,
right?
1886.
1886, yeah, that's right, yeah. Looked like it had some sort of zombies or werewolves or something in it. In like a steampunk setting.
Steampunk, of course.
Yeah,
Steampunk.
so I don't know. It looked nice, I guess. I wasn't really jacked up about it. Then they showed Killzone Shadowfall.
Which we'd seen before.
Yep. Then they did the Drive Club teaser, which we had also seen before. Infamous Second Son trailer, which everyone apparently is losing their shit about.
Not me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not either. You're the Infamous fanboy too.
I like it. I still haven't played Infamous 2 yet, so what's that tell you?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Tells me that you didn't want to build your own levels in Infamous 2.
Create your own missions. Then we saw another knack trailer. They talked about the launch games. Then they showed that Dark Sorcerer video from Quantic Dream.
Oh, yeah.
Which I don't know why that went on for so long. It was so long. I mean, yes, it was a real-time demo. Big whoop. I'm sure everything boasts that it's real-time now. It looked like a video to me, but I don't know why they spent, 3-4 minutes on that video?
Yeah, and I mean, the problem
was it even a game? I don't know. Is it a game?
I don't know.
Or is they just showing off their tech?
I think so. Like, I mean, the problem with a lot of the stuff that we're seeing is because all these games are so early, you're just getting sort of these teasers, maybe some cutscenes to sort of tell you the story, but you don't really know much about the game.
From what I could remember, there was no indication that it was actually a game. It was just like something they put together that was called that, and where we'll go after this is up in the air.
Yeah, it was almost like that other video Quantic Dream put together of that girl in the white area, whatever that was called.
The android.
Yeah, right. That's right, yeah. And then they showed Transistor from Supergiant Games. And apparently everyone's also creaming over that game.
I think it looks pretty sweet.
Which one is that again?
The one that looks like Bastion, except the girl has a sword.
It's by the makers of Bastion.
And it has like the same narrator. It sounds like. Then they went into their indie stuff. Showed Don't Starve from Clay. Clay? Yeah. Clay Entertainment. Mercenary Kings from the guys who made Scott Pilgrim. Octodad, Deadliest Catch. Secret Ponchos, who we used to work with some of the guys on that team. Some other stealth zombie game, which I don't remember what the name is. Outlast, Oddworld, New and Tasty, and Galaxy. Some 17.
Galaxy the Dimensional?
Yeah, that's it.
I'm excited for Oddworld New and Tasty. I'll
really?
say that. Yeah.
Isn't there like 10 Oddworld games?
I like them all.
No, they all
There's
suck.
actually only 4 that have been remade in different variations.
How do you
Isn't
like those
one
games?
free on PlayStation Plus?
Right now.
Yeah, it's horrible.
It's awesome.
Might have to check it out.
Don't do it.
Never got into the munch.
You'll love
They're brutal.
it. You'll love it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a shitty platformer with shitty platforming.
It's a bit dated.
All right, let's keep this going here.
Okay, then they showed Diablo 3 with PS4 exclusive content where you can get Drake's Fortune, blah, blah, blah. Then they showed the Final Fantasy Versus 13 trailer, which they then changed it to be Final Fantasy 15 at the end.
Which I thought looked pretty awesome.
I thought it looked awesome too, but super confusing. I don't know why they did that, but whatever. Yeah, I thought it looked good. Huge set pieces and stuff. Then they did the Kingdom Hearts 3 teaser. Final Fantasy 14, which is like an online game coming to consoles.
See, I'm always so confused with Final Fantasy. Like, I don't remember the last one I even played, but I can't keep track of what they all are anymore. And
probably don't need to then.
Yeah, I mean,
11 and 14 are online. The rest are
regular single player
regular
games.
installments.
Okay,
there you go. You're all caught
Summed
up.
You're done. Then they showed Assassin's Creed 4 gameplay, which I was surprised they showed such a long gameplay footage of that, and I think it had a lot of technical issues, if I
don't remember.
I'd
I'd like to mention that a lot of things we're talking about right now are not exclusive games.
Right, yeah.
Past what they had already
Oh, this was it. Remember they had like all those hangs? It would like, they'd go on the ship, and then the game would just freeze for like seconds? No. Anyways, there was a lot of hitches. Watch Dogs, and then
seen it.
Yeah, seen it. NBA 2K14, the LeBron video. Not impressed.
That was amazing.
Did you see his sweat? Then Elder Scrolls Online beta is first on PS4. I don't know why they'd even spend time with that.
Yeah.
Seems like such a waste of that time. And then they did the Mad Max teaser trailer.
All of which are not exclusive.
Yeah. So then Trent came back on. He said there's 140 games in development. I hope so. Then this is where all the crazy people go nuts. and they talk about how there's no restriction on used games, no online connection mandatory. I like to call this the fuck you Microsoft section. Background loading, voice chat, transition to social network, share button. PlayStation Plus applies to the PlayStation 4, which I actually thought was a pretty good thing.
I assumed, personally.
Yeah, never know though. And that they're going to give you free indie games when you get your PS4.
Now we haven't mentioned somewhere in all this, isn't PlayStation Plus required for online gaming?
I was going to mention that.
They kind of breezed over that in the press conference. It's like the smallest bullet point on.
So what's basically happened is Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus are now the exact same thing, basically, because Xbox has free games with theirs now. But
way less impressive free games.
I will agree. But
like
once again,
games,
both these consoles are looking exactly the same now.
Yeah.
But we should mention that viral video, which was part of that whole section of how to share a game on the PlayStation 4, and it's just the guy handing a game to somebody else.
Well, this is where I was somewhat of a lightning rod.
You must have seen this somewhere.
Of controversy.
I think Frank might have sent it to me, maybe. I did see it, yeah.
Frank was sharing it?
Oh,
that doesn't sound like something he would do.
But it's just this idea of how to win over gamers on the internet. Don't take away their rights, like these fake rights that I don't even know where they come up with them. Like this, we have a right to resell our games, and like Steam is the same thing. Microsoft has said they were going towards more of a Steam-based approach to gaming, where it was more of an open market. They could do sales when you can transfer rights, probably similar to what you can do with Steam with games, and that was kind of the thing. But no one ever calls Steam out for that stuff. It's like Microsoft have these devious intentions. On top of that, developers, I used to get berated at work for buying used games, that I wasn't supporting the industry. So it's amazing to me that developers stood silent in the whole thing and didn't stand up for Microsoft at all, saying because that's all I used to hear. Oh, fuck, used game sales fuck us over. You shouldn't be doing that. This is terrible for the industry. We get nothing from that. And no one stood behind Microsoft on this at all, which to me is a gutless maneuver.
I think ultimately Microsoft just didn't play it right. You know what I mean?
Well, I think Sony had the upper hand, right? As far as I can tell, they just probably had scenarios for what Microsoft is going to do. No matter what they say, we're going to be cheaper. If they say their digital rights, we're not going to be. Just complete pandering to the internet community.
That one little short viral video was so key to everything that happened at E3. It was shared everywhere across the internet, and it was pretty much, I would almost say that was the exact thing that forced Microsoft to eventually do the 180.
Now, I'm not saying that Sony didn't win E3. I would admit that handily. But it's all based on that one little thing that is completely catering to the.
I wouldn't say that. The price.
That is the two things. That's my second thing. Just be cheaper.
Yeah.
People don't want to spend money, and really all they did is take out what was a mandatory accessory at first, the iToy, which the Xbox comes with, and take that price out of the system.
So before we leave the DRM stuff, though, the Steam, if you remember, like when Steam first came out like 10 years ago, everyone hated Steam. And so they just like slowly but surely did their thing and won people over. And I think that's what Microsoft didn't do. They had to, like, Sony's taken the slow approach. Like, I buy so many more games on the PSN store now than I go out and buy them, that it's just going to happen naturally. So if Xbox would have come out and not put that hard enforcement on it, it would have just happened. And they wouldn't had to have been this like bad guy in the eyes of the consumer. It would have just been fine, but they had to like go and try to fast track right to where Steam is. They wanted to go from point A to point Z without all the points in between. And it just really, they just made a big mistake on that. Really, it would have happened anyways. They didn't have to do it. And, it's just too bad they did it, because now they look like assholes to all the consumers. That's probably it.
I don't know what it is. Just my nature, I guess. But as soon as that happened, I went right back to playing Xbox 360. I was like, you know what? I'm in a bit of an Xbox
They're
mood.
good guys.
You got it?
I was wondering this whole time because, I listened to the show and you've been going off about PlayStation. I remember you saying to me, I don't play Xbox games anymore.
It's true.
And now when you were just, it felt like it was almost a pain for you to admit. Like I admit that Sony won the E3. Shouldn't you be happy that they won E3 because you're a Sony fan?
I'm a fan of both.
But you were declaring that you were a fan of Sony earlier.
Let me phrase it like this. When it comes to third-party games, I buy the PlayStation version. I'm more concerned with trophies than achievements. My allegiances lie with Sony. If someone was to tell me I could only buy one of the new consoles, I would buy PS4. I like way more exclusive IPs that Sony has. But if we're talking about E3 in general and just analyzing the press conferences, I was more impressed by what I saw at Microsoft's than I was at Sony's. And it kind of reminded me of maybe some exclusive Xbox stuff I haven't played in a while. That's all. So I kind of had an itch to revisit Xbox and what I like about Xbox.
But if you were more impressed by Xbox at the conference, why would you still then say you'll buy PlayStation 4?
It's because
I had to choose.
I know what's coming from Sony that wasn't at the press conference. I got whatever Naughty Dog's doing, new God of War games, Ratchet and Clank, other IPs that I love from them, and other developers that I love that might not have shown something. I just thought a lot of the Sony stuff was third party that is going to be on both consoles anyway. And I admit that some of the stuff that was exclusive to them, they had already shown at their console reveal. So it kind of took some of the thunder out of those announcements. They probably would have been better for me if I hadn't seen them already. So it's kind of like a selfish approach. What are you showing me new lately?
Yeah. And if you're judging it exclusively only on the E3 press conference, that's not really giving you the whole story. So if you have that one like small view, you might want to go buy a 360, but looking at all this other stuff, like us knowing about how Sony's treating indies, and there's all these like indie, like really good indie titles coming out that Microsoft is just like not snubbing, but they're not making it easy for them to get on the Xbox platform. And a lot of Dwyer especially buys a shit ton of indie games. And I buy a lot of indie games.
Microsoft had some interesting indie stuff.
Well, they had one really good Summer of Arcade like 2 years ago. And
no, but I mean like at E3 this year.
Oh, sure.
They had a bunch of stuff.
To me, the biggest thing is my allegiance is still with Sony. I've never said it wasn't. I still think people were way too harsh on the DRM aspects. I think there's a lot of good things that for someone like me, that I buy new stuff when I want it, and I don't borrow a lot of games. If I want to play something, I'll just go buy it or wait till it gets to $40 or something like that. It's not a big deal to me that I have to buy stuff.
When you say your allegiance is with Sony, that's in reference specifically to if a third-party game comes out, it's available on both, you'll buy the Sony one? Or is there something beyond that?
I think I love the interface on PlayStation way more than Xbox. But all these things I'm saying, it doesn't mean I hate the other one. There seems to be like you have to pick a side mentality, which I don't have. When I was talking about E3, I was
Except for when I asked you if you played a certain Xbox game, you said, I don't play Xbox games anymore. You did pick a side then, but I understand what you're saying.
I think I've said this to you before too, and I know I have to Sean. I go through phases.
I'm very aware
of my phases, right?
You're in your Lone Ranger phase right now.
So I was in a very long, extended PS3 phase.
Right.
I'll go through teeny tiny Nintendo phases where I want to play Nintendo for a while. And this made me remember fondly on some Xbox memories, which we'll talk about on what we played, that I just kind of reacquainted myself with the Xbox and kind of got me excited for a relaunch of Xbox. Which console would win, in my opinion? Whatever one comes out first is probably the one I'll be more excited for immediately.
So I guess when you're talking about this stuff, you're talking from the perspective of someone who will, no matter what, be buying both. And the fact that you are buying both means in order to dig into what you prefer, you have to dig into things beyond the games, like just the layout of the interface of the menu or whatever, the
potential things. So let's talk about the DR.
Because a lot of stuff for people don't buy both systems. When you talk about something winning E3, like price and stuff like that, is probably very important to a lot of people, but not to you.
Yes, and that's why I would say Sony won E3. Well, in terms of the general consumer.
And I don't know if you know, Jay, but the PS4 has said they're going to be $100 less.
Right, yeah.
So that's going to be huge for people, especially if, parents are buying the systems. If they see the two consoles sitting side by side in a GameStop or whatever, why would they pick the $100 one?
Right.
If they had no other directive from their child.
But it should be huge for you as well, Frank, because you're buying both no matter what, and now you'll get both for $100 less.
It doesn't matter to me at all.
I know you would prefer to pay as much as possible for everything so no one else can enjoy it.
No, that's not what I'm saying. All I was talking about is E3 is after those press conferences, who was I more excited for? Like, what was I more excited about? I was more excited about the stuff I saw at Xboxes. Exclusive stuff. I can immediately look at something and the first thought running through my mind is that exclusive or not? And if it is, it carries a lot more weight than if it isn't.
Do they have a brushed steel Xbox coming out?
They have a day one edition.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if one of the consoles had announced, like the Vita, there was a week early version.
Carrying case.
Yeah, like you get the system a week early. That would have been a deciding factor. But we still have a couple more things.
Yes.
Right?
So the only
Destiny.
Yeah. So Destiny, they showed Destiny, which I felt it was like really dark. Like why would you show a gameplay video that took place in tons of dark hallways? And
I don't know. I thought it looked absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the games I'm most excited for after E3. I think it looks like a cooperative Halo, and if they can nail that kind of online persistent universe for something that isn't a WoW type game.
Yeah, it felt like it was trying to be Star Wars, which is basically like
cool.
Halo. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I'm still I want to see more, I think. But it is interesting that it's a multi-platform, right? But it is interesting that they're doing all their press with Sony, that they're kind of siding with Sony.
But it's like multi-platform too, right? So
you can play
PS3, PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One, I'm pretty sure.
Interesting.
It's on everything.
They won't talk to each other.
No, I know. Yeah. But I think they might, actually. If you bought both versions, I would assume if it's MMO, it's retrieving stuff.
Well, I guess Bungie's hosting servers then. Did anyone else think that airship looked like the airship from Terminator?
Didn't notice.
No.
Don't know.
Do not remember the airship.
I had just that written down. I remember now. And then the last thing really is the price point, which we talked about already. And they announced holiday season, which could be probably a week before Microsoft, whenever they announce.
So let's talk pre-orders.
Well, actually, so here's the exclusive for the exclusives that Sony had. Deep Down, Drive Club, Infamous Second Son, Killzone, Knack, Octodad, and The Order. That's it. Pretty slim list compared to the 360. And I bet they're banking on what I said, too. People know there's a lot of exclusive stuff that they love. Yeah, and I mean, like Naughty Dog, absent.
Yeah.
Sony Santa Monica, God of War guys, absent.
God of War? That's a good idea for a game.
And also,
that'd be amazing.
Like, across all things, I was surprised that Bethesda had nothing. Although I guess they probably will have their own show like Rockstar some other time. But, seems like a good spot to show some stuff.
I guess technically there was a God of War game already. The Beavis and Butthead game for Genesis where you're trying to get to the Gore concert.
You know what? The one thing I just remembered we didn't touch on from Microsoft, which maybe will carry into the discussion of the Microsoft reversal, is the cloud computing stuff, which I thought was fucking awesome. Just being able to do interesting things on their servers and being able to offload that from the game console, I thought had tons of potential. And it made me not care about the DRM. Like, I imagine Titanfall is banking on that shit. And now that Microsoft has reversed that policy, are they going to have the same thing like that the original the Xbox 360 had, where they didn't ship with a hard drive, so you had to guarantee that your game could run without installing any files. So I wonder if there's going to be a big fuck you to Titanfall now, because they assumed that was going to be there.
I think the cloud computing will still be there. It just, the DRM stuff won't. I don't see why those go hand in hand.
No. I'm not saying it'll leave the Microsoft console. I'm saying Titanfall might have made the assumption that it's always going to be available.
Oh, online.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, you're
so
right.
They always were counting on certain AI computations or whatever to be pushed up to the cloud. And now that fuck is not guaranteed.
I doubt they could allow that, because Microsoft even said you'd only have to sign in once every 24 hours or something like that. Like they said, you don't always have to be online. So
sure,
but there's nothing to say that they can't put out a game that requires always online.
No, definitely not. But I mean, I wonder if that now they have to put like a bullet point on the box, where before it was kind of assumed. I don't know. It just seems like it may impact some of their decisions that they have to make.
Well, I definitely think that's the case.
Now, this was my big thing with what I liked about DRM, which I admit in the grand scheme of things is a speck of uselessness. But the idea that I like to buy games physical copies, with the DRM, I would presumed I would have been able to install it and never have to put the disc in, because it's verifying that I own the game.
They definitely said that was something they were going to have.
And now I'm assuming that's impossible now.
They did say that they cannot do this anymore.
Which sucks. Which is just crushing to me.
Okay, let's do our top fives.
Should we
talk about Nintendo?
Maybe 5 minutes on Nintendo.
Okay. Let me find it here. I got it.
Which, if you watched their Nintendo Direct press conference, was so choppy and horrible, it was unwatchable.
I didn't watch it live, so it was fine for me.
It was brutal.
Okay. Pokemon
Exactly.
looked like the exact same thing. Super Mario 3D World.
Excited.
They love cats, apparently. Mario Kart 8, which looked good. Wii Party U, no big surprise there. Some Wii U drawing program.
Oh, Art Academy, which I'm actually kind of interested in.
Then they showed a bunch of third-party stuff. Assassin's Creed Black Flag, Batman Origins, Deus Ex Director's Cut, Disney Infinity, which I've been hearing a lot about, but I can't remember anything about it right now.
It's like Skylanders.
Oh, right.
Spyro with Disney toys. Kind of excited.
Collectibles. Just Dance 2014, Rayman Legends, Scribblenauts Unmasked, Disney's Planes, Skylanders Swap Force, Splinter Cell Blacklist, Sonic Lost World, and Watch Dogs.
Wow. These guys have derailed.
Brutal.
Did they announce any new how to quit smoking games?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I see whenever I look at the bargain bins for Nintendo games, it's like all how to quit smoking, how to lose weight, and cooking games. Why is Nintendo the worst? Frank?
Well, Nintendo is the best. They were the best. I'm losing faith. Like, I still love Nintendo games, but they're in danger of getting
They're in rough shape.
Although,
blown out of the landscape.
I think
of
I saw
games.
today that Miyamoto announced that they're working on a new IP. So maybe they will redeem themselves.
Well, we didn't announce that 100 up or
Announce.
Announce.
You're slipping into the body Jesse Ventura for a second there.
What were you saying?
Nothing.
Announce what?
It's called 100
Wonderful
versus-
101?
Yeah, that's it.
It's on here.
I thought that was a new IP for them. That was a big deal.
Yeah, they spent some time on that.
I could barely watch it because it kept cutting out. So
they did a bunch of eShop, like, small games, which I won't list here. None of them stood out. Wind Waker, they showed Donkey Kong 3D, which I'm sure you're fired up for, Frank.
I'm getting less fired up for these games.
Yeah.
Like,
they're just running them into the ground, let's face it.
Yeah. And then Bayonetta 2 trailer and gameplay. And then
Looked good.
my favorite, Xenoblade, the new Xenoblade game, and Smash Brothers. And it was Smash Brothers.
Now, Bayonetta 2 is Wii U exclusive.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I mean, they they have nothing else other than Nintendo first party stuff that's exclusive, right?
Yeah. They were well, that game was being developed and then it got dropped by whoever was publishing it. And then Nintendo picked it up. So
Just one more note about Disney Infinity. I think one of the there's 3 sets that launch with it. I'm pretty sure one of them is Lone Ranger.
Jeez.
With Lone Ranger toys.
So I guess
pretty excited.
So actually, there's a couple games from the Ubisoft conference I just want to talk about for a second before we move on to other stuff. But Stick of Truth, so fired up for that game. The Crew, which was that like driving MMO, and then The Division, which was also pretty big. I thought
I didn't see that.
No,
New Tom Clancy game.
yeah, it's Tom Clancy, end of the world type MMO game shooter. And then EA did the Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, which Frank and I agreed before looked pretty cool, actually.
Pretty excited.
Yeah, and that Battlefront teaser, Star Wars Battlefront, because now EA has the rights to all Star Wars games.
Right. Didn't show anything from the game. It's just
just a teaser. And then they showed a bunch of sports titles, which really were nothing but teasers. I don't know why they're teasing sports titles. And
they're coming.
And they showed a little more Battlefield 4 and Mirror's Edge 2 teaser.
No, Mirror's Edge reboot.
Reboot?
Yeah.
It's not a sequel?
No.
What?
Revisiting of Mirror's Edge.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Really? And then, I don't know if you guys watched the Horizon, which was like the indie one, but they just announced a few games. They showed Tearaway, actually, which looked really cool. And, Double Fine has 2 new titles funded to be developed. So that's probably, 4 or 5 in development for them right now. Little scary to have that many titles on the go, but, And then the big deal was they had a Fez 2 teaser at the end, which really was a teaser. And I don't know why it got so much hype. Yeah, that's E3 in a nutshell.
E3.
It's E3 in a nutshell.
And I've already forgotten most of it.
So, Microsoft.
Well,
Winner.
Well, let's first pre-order consoles.
like
Who's pre-ordered what?
I pre-ordered nothing.
Nothing.
Jay?
Nothing.
I've pre-ordered both.
Look, Jay, do you have an opinion on which you would prefer at this point, or
Based on our riveting discussion.
I think the price does play a role, but in terms of the games, I think for me, just because I'm not as immediately familiar with all the games, the Xbox definitely has the most immediately attractive lineup of games. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, Frank, that you know what's coming down the road, and if I'm only completing Naughty Dog games, I got to get the PS4. But also with my PS3, I use it mainly as a Blu-ray player, so just want a new Blu-ray player.
Well, I think that's what got most of us on the PS3, and the Netflix was accessible without an Xbox Live Gold account, which was nice, or any sort of payment of any kind.
I guess that's where, for me as well, the layout of the menus is important, because I spend most of my time like in the menu picking the Blu-ray.
And it's so much faster to do stuff on PS3 with the cross-media bar.
yeah,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what PlayStation's new interface is like. If they go too far in complicating things,
I think I saw it. I think they went more
like Facebooky, right?
Yeah, like Facebooky, and even what Xbox has done recently with the new dashboard updates and
that
stuff.
to me would be a step in the wrong direction.
Big time.
Now, one question that I don't know if there is an answer to this, but the big thing for me, and the reason why I haven't really pre-ordered one, or I honestly don't, like, I guess I would lean towards PS4, but for me, it's all about the launch titles. Do we know what actually are considered launch titles at this point?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah.
So that's going to be a big thing, I think. But I don't know. I mean, honestly, because all these games we've been seeing are so, like, just a teaser trailer. We have it seems like none of these are ready to be launch titles. So I have.
And
no
maybe
idea.
that's something that factored into my preference for Xbox at E3 was the games in their press conference looked way more playable
right.
than the stuff in the Sony one.
True.
And the stuff that was playable in the Sony one
was third party.
Well, like obviously Assassin's Creed is going to be playable.
Yeah.
Like it's just building on
Yeah.
the last ones and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Top fives. Top
do it.
5 best of E3.
Let's do it.
Who's my number 5 is Killer Instinct.
Look out.
Number 4, am I just gonna do my whole thing?
Yeah.
Number 4, Metal Gear 5, The Phantom Pain. Number 3, we haven't talked about this too much, but Sunset Overdrive. That picture Jay was laughing at when we looked it up before.
You love Insomniac.
That art is the worst. That art style.
I don't. I'm kind of with Jay. I don't really like it either.
Wait till you see it in motion.
Oh, I did see it in motion.
Now, the reason why I'm excited for this game, from what I understand, it's a online, updated daily kind of shooter where they're adding new weapons and ideas like that all the time. And to me, that's what Insomniac is best at. They can come up with these crazy weapon ideas with secondary fire. And if this is like a game that's fun, that exists, and all the time they're adding new weapons, like normally when they add new weapons to Call of Duty, like I don't care, it's essentially another gun. But when Insomniac comes up with weapons, it's a totally different idea. Like just the bullseye gun in Resistance alone is amazing. And
But will they be able to keep up that pace?
Exactly. This one I'm excited mostly on potential, not on what's there. And number 2 is Crimson Dragon, and number 1 is Destiny,
Whoa.
which I think looks amazing.
I have a really different top 5 than you, actually. And mine doesn't have all games. So my number 5 is actually all the Sony indie stuff, which I thought as a whole was super impressive, and just the way they're going down the road. Number 4 was Dead Rising 3. I don't know if it's just because my brother-in-law works at that studio. Maybe I'm a little biased, but
This guy, man.
but yeah, I don't know. I thought the game looked pretty cool, and it was a definite, obvious gameplay. Other than like a bunch of the teasers we saw, it was just refreshing to see gameplay. Number 3 was in general all of the Xbox exclusives that they have really impressed me. Number 2, the price of the PS4. I was not expecting it to be that low. I don't know. I've played my PS3 for 6 years now, and I paid way more than $400 for it.
Yep.
And I know I've used it a ton, and it's never broken on me yet, knock on wood. But to me, I would pay more than that. Like people pay $500 for an iPad, and you do way less shit on an iPad than on a PS3. Wait, you can't play Blu-ray.
Way less? I don't know about that.
Easy there, Dwight guy. You can't play Where's My Water and shit on it. But I only say that because I just started playing that game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And then my number 1 was Phantom Pain. I was super impressed by that demo. So could get me. I almost put in Metal Gear Solid 4. I shouldn't say that. I did put in Metal Gear Solid 4. And then when I saw the installing screen, I quit Metal Gear Solid 4.
It's the best install screen ever.
I know, but it's just so long.
Smoking the cigarette.
I know, it's just so long, though. I didn't have the time. I just wanted to play.
All right, well, my list is totally different from both of yours. Number 5, Titanfall. Looks all right. Number 4, The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Two Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Got to be excited
Did
about that.
they even show that, though? I guess they must have.
They released a trailer, but, I mean, yeah, it's Nintendo was not much of a presence in general at E3. But, yeah, the idea of a sequel to A Link to the Past for the 3DS. I mean, that's the only thing I think Nintendo has going for them right now is the 3DS is decent. I mean, the 3D, nobody gives a shit that it's 3D, but at least they've got a new handheld, and they've got, downloadable titles for it. Their eShop is better than it used to be. Whatever. Number 3 is Below, the Cappy game announced for Xbox One. Don't know too much about it, but I like the studio, and they seem to have some creative ideas.
Looked like a game that might be up Jay's wheelhouse there.
Maybe up Jay's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You'll have to look it up.
I mean, the art style is the same as Super Brothers Sword and Sorcery, so I'm a fan
I'm
of
definitely in.
that. Number 2, this may be controversial. Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate, the Vita game. Have you guys heard about this?
No.
They're doing like it's totally different Vita game, and it's kind of more. It's like a 2D Metroid basically,
Oh god.
but like with 3D graphics, but like 2D gameplay.
2.5D.
2.5D
Shadow Complex.
Yeah,
style.
exactly. Which sounds amazing to me.
Had I known that, I would have put that number 1 for you.
Well, number 1, this might be an interesting one. Not a game. This, to me, is kind of actually more of a next-gen console than both Xbox One
Ooh, yeah.
Oh,
and
he's going to
PlayStation
the
4.
Rift.
The
Oh, he's
Oculus
doing
Rift.
it. What a gadget guy.
And I mean, it's so hard to tell because you can watch videos, but you can't really see videos of what it actually is like to experience this thing. But, like, have you heard of this, Jay, the Oculus Rift?
No. It sounds like a physics thing.
It's like a VR helmet. Like VR is back, but it's
It's
like
Lawnmower Man.
But it's
It is
it's like
Lawnmower Man.
HD and apparently amazing. Like everybody says, it's like crazy how
Every
good it
reaction
looks.
video you see, people are blown away by it.
So if you turn your head, it picks that up and turns the camera in the game world.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, it's still in development and people are playing with it.
And are you seeing they're announcing, not the Oculus Rift guys, but other people are announcing like unidirectional treadmills, so you can actually hook that up as like your controller D-pad.
Nice.
So you actually it's like Lawnmower Man, exactly.
I am so interested in this.
Dwight's gonna get
But,
a whole room.
One
Put
thing,
an addition on the house.
have you guys seen any of the reaction videos of the guillotine demo?
No.
They have like this demo, I guess, where they make people like kind of lie chest down on a table, and they have the helmet on,
Oh no.
and they're looking around, and basically they're lying on like a block, and then they kind of look around, and there's like a courtyard with people watching them, and then they look up, and there's a blade, and it comes down and like cuts their head, and people freak out every time. It's awesome.
It's like the ultimate mindfuck tool.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Mindfuck
sure.
of the century.
I think we've found his mindfuck for this month already.
Now I have a couple honorable
Apparently,
mentions.
Philip K. Dick was right.
That's true. He was. A couple honorable mentions. I threw Transistor in there, Star Wars Battlefront, but nothing really to see. Mad Max. I'm interested, but it could just be a shitty licensed tie-in movie game. The Division looks interesting. Surprised this one wasn't on Frank's list. Peggle 2.
It was just an announcement.
That's all you need.
I considered it.
I'm pretty psyched for Peggle 2. All right, so let's briefly talk, and maybe we should skip some of this other news stuff, but briefly touch on the Xbox 180 thing.
Sure.
Because we didn't really fully go into it, but obviously like a week or two after E3, Microsoft released a statement saying that, you know what, we clearly were wrong in what we said, and we shouldn't be taking people's right to sell games away from them, blah, blah, blah. We're getting rid of the DRM. We're getting rid of the always online functionality. And in the statement, they did mention, as Frank said, there was a couple things where they said, because of this, we won't be able to do some of the other things we said we could do. So it was kind of like a little backhanded, like, you wusses can't handle it. You're not going to get all the good stuff that the Xbox One could have done. But the question is, do you guys think this changes anything? Do you think, if Sony had won E3 and if Sony was already way out to a lead in terms of pre-orders and stuff like that, does this now level the playing field, or is it too late?
I think it's too late.
I don't. I think gamers are, what have you done for me lately? If Microsoft has an amazing game that Sony doesn't have at launch or anything like that, that could change everything.
I think though, like to just backtrack a bit on what I just said, that kids, like I know a kid who's 10, 11 years old, and he's just all Xbox because all his buddies are on Xbox. So I think you're going to have that group of gamers who are, you know, their friends are on Xbox. They're going to stick to Xbox. That's basically why I adapted to PS3. So all my buddies are on PS3. So why would I not play mostly on PS3? So I think the whole war we're talking about is going to be a little less than people think it is, because I think you're almost getting that like brand recognition now, where you almost just stick with, like, unless you're like Frank, where you're going to buy both. I think you just stick with the one you've grown accustomed to and enjoy.
But I think that's still like hardcore gamers you're talking about. The mainstream audiences are just going to sit back and say, well, which one's cheaper? I think that's a huge thing. But also, they're just going to be like, okay, what games are out? What?
Well, I don't know. I think I can't see a guy who picks up Madden and Call of Duty, and those are his only 2 games for the year, and he has all his buddies on Xbox wanting to switch over to PlayStation for $100 to save $100. I thought
you were going to say the opposite. If those are the only 2 games he's playing, why would he buy the Xbox?
No, but if he's sinking like thousands of hours into those 2 titles and all his buddies are playing with them just to save $100, you know, I can't see them switching.
Well, couldn't all the buddies decide we're going to switch?
Yeah, I mean, if they all do it at the same time, yeah, for sure. But I don't know if they would do that.
Guess it all comes down to the buddies.
Yep.
Well,
Buds.
It is interesting though that there's, you know, there was this hardcore group of Microsoft fans that were, you know, really defending the DRM stuff and basically saying, no, this is actually going to be good. And I don't know, maybe some of them were just trying to convince themselves.
I actually saw there was a petition going around to bring it back.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Frank had mentioned that. So yeah, now some of the hardcore Microsoft fans are like, wait a minute, Microsoft just betrayed me. I was behind them, and now they're...
I thought it was a really gutless move to go back. I understand why they did it. That's fine. But it just...
I think that video, man, that viral video, it was everywhere, and it turned Microsoft into a joke, and they realized we can't fight this.
But don't you become an even bigger joke when you change because of that video?
It's like BioWare with the Mass Effect ending.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
shameful.
It's like people say about companies nowadays. Like, if you are just upfront with people and apologize, then at least people will forgive you.
Or just explain your reasoning for it better.
Yeah, that's
better
true.
than they did.
That's true.
Doesn't it just depend on what it is you're backtracking on? If it's something that everyone wants changed, then isn't it ultimately a good decision, whether or not you're backtracking?
I think the problem is that how do you know that everyone wants it? It's like always a vocal minority, right? So are they actually representing the majority, or are they representing like the 1% of people that are pissed off? I mean, none of us care, I don't think. It's not a big deal to any of us. So if we take a consensus amongst us, they are not, you know, they're representing none of us. So I don't know. I think it's harder to judge than just the internet's opinion, because that's not really representative.
In terms of pros and cons, what were the main pros of going with what they were planning to do? Other than changing the future.
I think that's the problem, is they never really fully laid out what the plan was. I think just there were some interesting things you could do, and I think they were obviously trying to protect against piracy and things like that, which, you know, you don't want to just say that because people are going to be like, I don't care.
Then I don't understand the big deal. If there was no immediate
the DRM
benefit.
I think is a little different than the always on. I think the always on thing, there's a better argument there. I think there's a lot of potential with what you could do with something that is always connected.
The always on is a problem if you travel a lot and you want to take, like, you go on your trips and you want to take your PS3 to watch some Blu-rays, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Right? That's a big deal for people. Mm-hmm. If you have to have an internet connection in some random hotel room, you're not going to pay the $20 an hour for internet just so you can watch a Blu-ray movie that has nothing to do with the internet. Mm-hmm. So in that regard, and because they didn't explain that very well, that could have been a real big changer. But I mean, that's the thing. They didn't explain it well enough. And when you lay out these like sweeping statements about stuff that can really impact people and you don't explain it, people are going to assume the worst, right? So
one thing we haven't talked about that to me is the big deal of the bullshit, so-called bullshit with the Xbox One is always having to have Kinect plugged in.
Oh yeah.
Which
the security issues
doesn't seem to be that big a deal, but to me that's like the biggest. What? I have to have this thing on all the time?
I think that for me that's something that I don't like.
Yeah,
people
it's
are
a little
definitely
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And especially when it's like it can read your heartbeat and all this crazy stuff that really
especially
do you want a camera to that's always connected to the internet.
I don't care about any of that sort of stuff. I just want to play a game. So I don't care if it can read my heartbeat. I don't care if I can say start movie or whatever. I don't care about that stuff. And then the additional, like, did they ever confirm that there was the plan of being able to see how many people are watching a movie and limit?
I don't know if they ever confirmed that.
I think they have a patent on it though, but I don't think they ever said they're actually going to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that is weird to me.
Yeah. So ultimately, both of these consoles, they look very similar. You pay an extra $100 to get the Kinect stuff for the Xbox One.
Well, and then the new news too is them firing Don Matrick, who is basically the front man for the Xbox. Well, actually, he left. He didn't get fired. He left to go to Zynga.
We all know what that means.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he was. It's weird because
everyone leaves Microsoft to go to a company that's on the brink of disaster.
Yeah.
It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I mean, that in itself doesn't really give the consumer any more confidence, if you even know who Don Matrick is, that is. Because your front man is now gone. You now have a new front man. I can't remember her name. Some girl. I don't even know.
She was coming from like Windows 8.
Yeah, Windows 8. I don't know if she has any game experience. I don't know if she's ever even played a game. She knows anything about games.
Probably not.
She's a girl.
Well, not to say that, but I mean, we saw how it went with, was it Nintendo that had that girl as the front man? Sorry, the woman as the front woman. You know what I mean, though? But she didn't last very long. I think the internet just, like, those 10-year-old boys just do not.
Yeah, but I wonder where these biases come from, man.
But on the flip side, there was people who were pointing out. I think they were pointing out that Sony had no female people at all speaking at their press conference, and they were saying, "Well, no wonder they're not expanding the audience of gamers." Whereas Microsoft actually had some women up there, so people liked that.
I would like to see if someone like Jack Tretton, he's perceived as the cool CEO. I want to see him play a game. I bet none of these guys play games. Don Matrick, anybody. They're just they're business guys. That's what they're there for. So to put these perceptions on that they are hardcore gamers and one represents gamers and one doesn't is a joke.
That's probably pretty true. Yeah. And I'm not saying that she won't do a good job. I'm just saying that in history of CEOs at game companies, females have not done very well. And so at this critical junction of I don't know what I'm saying. I don't even shame you saying this.
It's because of all the slut shaming online.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a big thing right now about just girls getting, like, just absolutely slaughtered online by guys talking shit to them, right? So I'm sure that opinion carries on in the digital world of people. That, like, I'm just saying it could hurt Microsoft's image unjustly
with their
fan base. Which is all those kids that just complain about girls online and stuff. Yeah. I'm not saying that's also a generalization of all the people, but
no, that's pretty true. Okay, well, let's get into The Last of Us, because I know a lot of people have been waiting to hear us talk about this.
Let's get Jay in here.
So, I guess we should mention, since you guys, Frank and Jay, you finished the game, why don't we do like a general spoiler-free review, and then maybe you guys can do like a spoiler discussion like we would do on Film Junk, and then put it at the end of the show? Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right. So, but The Last of Us, obviously developed by Naughty Dog, and out now for the PlayStation 3. Do we have a plot synopsis? let me just throw it over to. Why don't we throw it over to Jay?
For
Jay?
plot synopsis?
No.
Give us
Story
plot
synopsis?
versus story.
So, obviously you stuck through it to the end.
I
What'd
would
you think?
say stuck through it is probably an appropriate way to put it
Yeah.
in certain sections. But overall, it was a pretty enjoyable experience. And I would say in terms of storytelling in games, out of the few games that I've played, especially to that extent, I think it's much better than most games. The voice acting is immediately better. The animation seems to be better, which helps you connect to the characters. And it just does some things that I immediately thought, okay, what is the effect of this, and is it a good thing or a bad thing? So the opening scene in which the virus or whatever starts driving people crazy, and you're carrying your daughter, and the idea of starting from the perspective of the kid, and then eventually moving into the perspective of the character. What's the character's name? Joel. Moving to his perspective, carrying the daughter, and then the big thing that happens at that point, which kickstarts the rest of the game. I find that interesting, just the idea of, because I saw on Twitter when people were first playing it, claiming that they, for the first time, cried at a video game and whatnot, how that effect of changing from a child to a man carrying that child affects gameplay, and then it plays a role later on as well. And I mean, do you guys think that that's something that's interesting, or is that confusing when it comes to playing a game that's supposed to be immersive and telling this story?
I love stuff like that. Anytime you do character switches, a few games have done it a bit in the past. I would say Eternal Darkness is one of the first games that did that.
Yeah.
That had multiple characters. And then it's in Uncharted 3 a bit, and also Red Dead, the ending. Spoilerish.
What about Metal Gear Solid 2?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's a huge one. I can't believe I forgot that. But I love that stuff. It's just extra little wrinkles and nuggets that add to the experience of the game.
I'm just trying to figure out what it adds.
Well,
But
I mean, there's movies where you change perspectives too, right? And you follow different characters.
Right, but in a game, you're playing through the experience of somebody,
Right.
and in that short period of time, I mean, you're going to then carry on as that man. So, would it be more effective if you were that man right from the beginning? I don't know, but
I think what they were trying to do was, you start off as the girl, and you obviously appear weak and helpless. And then at that point, they want to establish Joel as sort of like the protector. And I think that scene definitely establishes him in that role, which then obviously throughout the rest of the game, that's what he's doing, right? He's protecting Ellie, right? So I think in that regard, that character switch puts you in that vulnerable position and then takes you into Joel, which gives you, I guess, more of a sense of security at that point. And then it carries on.
right, I can see that. But do you think it's because a lot of people who play games are younger and don't have kids and maybe aren't able to empathize with an adult protecting a child, so you have to start with them playing as the kid to feel like I got killed?
I don't know if I would say most people playing games are younger necessarily. Like, I mean, the game isn't it rated M for mature?
Well, I don't think
so.
that matters.
I think it matters to an extent, but I mean, like, that's they're going for an older audience, and I think they say the average gamer is like in his 30s now or something. So
Either way, it was. I liked how that stuff played out, and it was a good introduction. I just found that interesting, and throughout the rest of it, I mean, it goes pretty far out of its way to establish a certain mood and tone, and there's a pacing to it. Like in that opening scene, they're forcing you to walk around the house slowly, and I'm fine with that because it's actually building suspense. And the first thing I love is walking around a hallway slowly to build suspense. But when you get throughout the game, I find that there are moments where it can almost be a fault that that stuff is so effective that when it's broken up by gameplay almost ruins the experience in some ways. Like when you're carrying the girl at the beginning, I mean, they make it pretty easy, like you can run through, but there was one point where I should have turned down the alley and I ran straight just because I wasn't paying attention or something, and a zombie or whatever came up and bit me on the throat, and then I restarted and I have to run again, and it's like, oh right, I'm playing a game. You know, it's moments like that. I feel like, couldn't they have just overlooked being so stuck on this idea of having to die, and just have it that, you know, maybe you just get something happens to redirect you the other way so that you can maintain that mood or atmosphere. There were moments like that throughout the game where I felt the game got in the way of the story a little bit.
That's tough to handle because I think they did do some portions during that section where they do try to block you off, but at a certain time you can break that as well. Whereas, you know, they could have a tree pole come down and block your way or whatever they do, right? And you could just stand there because you are in control.
Right.
And that really breaks the whole tension that they're trying to build also.
But that, in that way, it's not as bad because you're breaking the tension as the player. If you're just standing there, you're obviously not engaged if you're attempting to break a scenario. Whereas if you're in the moment and you just make a mistake and then it's broken by just, you know, the fact that it's a game.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is the kind of the endless debate about, you know, there's the people that think basically story and gameplay just don't mix. And I can see the point because, I mean, the thing is it's really hard to have seamless shifts between them because you're always aware. And I agree. Like, I think for me, the thing I like the most about the game is the storytelling and the level of, I guess, just quality that's there. I was very impressed by it. But I wasn't as in love with the gameplay. I mean, partially it's just a personal bias. I'm not huge on stealth games. And there was just, I mean, I felt frustration that you had voiced on Twitter, you know, things where you're doing the same
at
thing
Jay Cheel, twitter.com,
yeah.
at Jay Cheel.
If you want more frustrated game tweets, follow that. But
I agree with you, though, that definitely gameplay does get in the way sometimes. But at the same time, without that knowledge that something can actually kill you, when you try to get away, like there's been times in this game where I get killed or I'm getting beat up real bad, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm out of here, and I just start sprinting, and then I get away.
Me too.
But then I get away. There's way more sense of relief that I did actually get away, especially in this game, because they rarely, at least where I'm at, I'm about the halfway point, but so far there's been very few situations where I have to kill everyone on screen. I can just kind of run to the next area, hop a fence, and I'm past the threat. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you never had that threat of actually dying, those moments where you get away would never hold any weight at all.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only time, the times that I felt frustrated, and it's not so much that I don't expect to die in a game or I don't want challenge in a game. It's just when you die, and I think it has more to do with checkpoints for me, and especially with stealth elements, because if you have to sneak around a bunch of people and then you die at this point and then it bumps you back and you have to sneak again, it just feels like I accomplished this. I've accomplished this. I know to sneak past these people. And then on the other hand, if you're like taking on a horde, it's like, it almost felt like at some point either I got lucky or I just memorized the motion, or like it doesn't feel like you're accomplishing anything other than just I'll do it over and over and over until I get it. And then when you get it, it's not so much like, wow, I can't believe I finished that. It's more like, thank fucking God. Let's continue with this game.
I guess I had a really opposite experience to you in that I was surprised by how polarizing the reviews for this game were, in a way.
Polarizing?
Yeah, IGN gave it a 10, said it's a perfect game, and I think Polygram gave it a 7.5.
Polygon.
I
mean,
Polygram Records.
But they were like one of the
featuring
few.
ABBA Gold.
Worst record ever.
They got hammered for that review, though.
Well,
But they were one of
It
the
was
few
just
sites
so.
that gave a bad, like, it was almost across the board.
okay,
Which
and
is not a bad review, let's be clear. 7.5 is still a good game.
For a blockbuster
I can-
game, it's lower than expected.
I love the game, but I could see how someone could give it a 7.5 in some respects. Technically, it is amazing. It blows my mind from the beginning of the game. Load screen, phenomenal.
It's a fucking long load screen.
It's a very long loading screen,
Better
but
than
you
a
have
man
to.
smoking a cigarette, it'd be top notch.
But you have to. No, I really do love the load screen. I'm not being sarcastic at all. But the idea once you're in the game, it is seamless. So I'm fine with that. I can handle an initial load. I can take a big load to start with, as long as I can go a long time without taking another load.
All right.
That's the basic principle at work here.
And in life.
So I just find I love the combat. That's one of my favorite things about the game. I find the camera work there, all the game systems of combining resources and searching for resources and when to use them, when to take an enemy out barehanded with a brick, using the AI and sound distraction. I'm not a fan of stealth games usually. I find that combat frustrating. This game for me did it perfect. And by the end of the game, I was developing new tactics, stuff I didn't think I would use. I was finding the use of, like the smoke bombs, the explosions, Molotovs. I played on hard, so I really had to exploit everything that I had to get to the end of the game. And I was using all the different weapons, and I love that stuff. Like, to me, the combat was amazing. I did get frustrated at certain points, some of the harder parts, but I'm kind of more on Andrew's side where when I finally accomplish those things, it feels awesome rather than thank fucking God. Now, as for the other sections, now I might be kind of different in that personally I thought there was a lot more walking and pace control than I would have liked. I thought it was really effective in the first few chapters, but once you get to Pittsburgh, and I think the 2 chapters after that, those are the longest chapters, and I felt there was a little too much repetition in the environments you were going through. Now, in terms of an experience, I could see how you could say it's trying to recreate the journey that they're going on, like how long it takes and how difficult it was. And that's fine, but for a gamer like me that is so kind of...
Attention deficit disorder?
No, the opposite, where I'm exploring every nook and cranny of every area for collectibles and extra resources and upgrades. It takes me even longer to get through those areas because I'll give them credit. Every area is really big and detailed and feels authentic in every way, and it's amazing. So I was taking a lot of time searching these areas, and that kind of kept me in areas pacing-wise longer than I thought I should be there. So you could say that's half my fault, maybe half the game's fault. Just if that's the way you play, you might spend a little more time than you should in those. But overall, the game does amazing things. And like you said, the performances are awesome. I don't think...
The performances are awesome in
video game terms.
Yes.
So you've also been mentioning something else recently, if movies were reviewed like video games. I would say this game does elevate story to the point where I started critiquing it more like a movie than I would a game, in the sense of, the Ellie character. I mean, she says fuck all the time for kind of like this hit girl effect, which kind of gets annoying. I don't want to get too much into the ending, but I wasn't super crazy about it. It's
just because you were wrong in calling the twist, or
no.
Okay.
But it is weird in this kind of weird world between games and movies. I almost felt like the ending didn't live up to the journey. I still liked it, but it's weird that I felt somewhat dissatisfied by it. And I don't know where that is yet. I'm still kind of digesting it in the grand scheme of playing the game. Some of the character transitions you were talking about, there's another one later in the game, which actually has a suspense element to it, where something has happened and you don't know what's going on at that point, which I really loved. And just, like I said, technically some of the stuff they do, the look of snow, like the alcohol at the beginning that waves back and forth, sitting on couches and animating the couches. I mean, I just look at this game and it is a visual feast. I can't believe how good it is.
Was it animated couches, a bullet point on the back of the box? Or?
I don't know, but it's stuff like that just... The fact that they go to those lengths is amazing to me.
What did you guys think about the animated couch cushions?
I haven't seen any yet, actually.
It's in the first cinematic when he sits down on the couch.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like in-game somehow.
No.
Somewhere. Oh, okay.
I wish it was in game.
Just a whole mini game to showcase the animated couch.
Switch cushions, test them all out.
Build a fort.
So, Jay, when you played, did you explore like Frank, or were you very like
No.
point A to point B?
I explored only when I needed stuff.
Okay. So I've been exploring, probably not to the extent that Frank does, but I also like to explore, especially in this area where I feel like the level design is really, really well done, where there are places to explore, but it's not everything. Like, not every door is open to you. It's not overwhelming to the point where you feel like you're just running through a maze. But I have noticed that there are a lot of like side stories that go on when you do that exploration, that really add a lot. Like, even just if you stick back, I think when you're in that church and you go into the guy's bedroom, and Ellie comes in and she has a little side dialogue with you that you wouldn't get if you didn't go in there. And it just adds a little more. I can't remember. She apologizes for something or blah, blah, blah. And I felt like it helped flesh out the story more.
Yeah, they're really good at
doing
integrating content without pausing for cinematic.
That's right. Yeah. And I think by not doing that, you actually miss stuff. And even someone tipped me onto this. I was reading some other review, but right before Pittsburgh, when you're trying to get the car, you find like that note on the ground, and you read it, and it's like by, what's that guy's name? The other guy who's with you with the car. Anyways, it's by his buddy, and you read it, and then if you go talk to him, you give him the note saying like, I think this is for you, and then if you actually walk around the other side of the car, you'll find that note crumpled up, because the guy had crumpled it up and pissed off and thrown it on the ground.
You see him do it, though, like in the animation.
Right, but just the fact that you can go and then pick that up and it's crumpled in your inventory and stuff is a subtle storytelling element that I don't know any other game that does that.
I don't know do you really think it's a storytelling element, though? Does it really add anything other than being able to say, wow, I can't believe they took the time to do that?
Well, it sort of fleshes out subtly the relationship between those two guys. Well,
to me, it's more like this guy's gay. That's the whole point of that. Honestly, though, I think it's just like you never expect this guy to be gay. Let's make him gay. That's what I got out of that whole side story. It's just it was just kind of not that interesting to me.
I mean, that stuff is... It's okay. I mean, I don't think, like, when you say side stories, it's not like, an MMO or something where you have like side quests or
no
anything like that. Like, the game is very linear, I would say.
No, it just like fleshes out characters.
Yeah,
in a little more light.
It is cool that like if you explore, you get a few extra little tidbits here and there. But I found that like I wasn't a huge fan of the crafting system. I kind of felt like, I explore a lot as well, and I have sort of the compulsion to try and get collectibles, but there's no real feeling of like, oh, I found this cool thing, because after a while you kind of know most of the supplies you can find, and you're just constantly just grabbing whatever's there.
I'm with Frank. I like it a lot. I felt like when I'd get to a full state where because you can only really have like 3 of any kind of thing, at least where I am. I don't know if it upgrades. But I then have to make the decision, do I craft something and then try to fill that hole again, or do I just keep it for when I need it? And I would always, I'm constantly weighing that back and forth to see, like maybe I'll need this, and like if I get into some hairy situation, whatever. So I was constantly, weighing the pros and cons, which, I don't usually do. I usually just pick up everything, and I have tons of stuff. And I think it's really well balanced in that regard, where they always seem to have that line drawn where you just get to full, but you're still missing some stuff, so you could craft and use it up. And I'm just getting to the point now where different items take stuff from other items, so then you have to start weighing, like I think the
health kit versus a shiv.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Yeah. So, do I want to, and then you got to then change your tactics in game. If you,
oh wait, I think it's health kit versus a Molotov.
Yeah, something like that. Either way, if you don't want to make the shiv, you then have to change your tactics against the clicker guys.
Yeah,
right?
I completely agree. And to me, the best part about that is its simplicity.
Yeah.
It is such a basic system that has huge
tactical
ramifications. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that stuff. And I talked briefly about the combat, but just the cameras for stealth, the listening radar, I think is amazing. The AI, it does exactly what I think it's going to do in terms of how I can manipulate them without being annoying. And the fact that you can run away and lose them again. I think sometimes in stealth games, once you're caught, you have to go to astronomical levels to escape and not be seen again. Where this game, in real life, if there was a lot of clutter, I think you could kind of hide again very quickly if they missed you and you stayed low. And I think this game captures that perfectly.
The one thing about
the weapons, everything, the cameras for combat are phenomenal.
The one thing about the AI, which I've heard mentioned in other reviews, is that it is a little annoying when you have guys with like big boots running ahead of you, making a shit ton of noise, and apparently no one can hear them. They only hear you. And like even the line of sight guys, they can obviously see your AI friends, and they don't react at all.
Yeah, to me, if it was the opposite, everyone would snap.
It would be annoying as hell. And I totally understand it from a gameplay perspective, but like to Jay's point, that totally would break illusion of the game, right? Where you want to be invested in this game, and the gameplay kind of takes you out of that. So, like, I totally understand. I would want to shoot myself if those guys could be seen, because it'd be so frustrating.
What could be amazing, though, is co-op gameplay with that.
Yeah,
right? That to me would be awesome if it's two people trying to take down
Left 4 Dead, man. They already made that game,
but not with a stealth.
I guess. I mean, I don't mind some of those little trade-offs like what you're talking about. I was actually going to bring up the fact that you have characters that are with you through most of the game, and I think a lot of games that have that, it's always a frustration. It's always something people hate, that you have these other characters that are getting in your way or getting into trouble, and like the AI sucks. But they find a way to do it that isn't like, I never really found that they ever got in my way or anything.
And they actually kill people sometimes.
Yeah, a lot of times they help out. And on top of that, I think that's a huge part of how they elevated the story in this game. Like, if you were just a lone guy wandering through the landscape, like, it would be kind of boring after a while. Like, you have these people talking to you, you get to know them after a while. And I mean, I find that games where you have characters with you, stuff like Mass Effect and other similar games, like even I guess the original Metal Gear Solid, those are the characters you remember, and those are the stories that you remember. And so I think that's a huge part of what makes this game work and what I liked in this game. And I think that's something maybe a lot of other games, like especially shooters, they avoid ever having people tagging along with you, because it's a huge technical problem that you have to worry about these AI controlled characters, but it adds so much to the story side that it's worth it.
See, for my first 5 hours, I was loving it. I was saying this is the best game I've ever played. But I did find there was a bit of a repetition to everything towards the end. And they don't introduce a lot of new types of enemies. But one of the things that does save it is the visual pacing. I find that, you're moving from forests to snow to sewers to water, and they all look amazing. And kind of just refresh everything. That's why I think some of the middle sections, particularly Pittsburgh, stand out as being, you're seeing the same thing for so long that it just feels a bit of a slog getting through that area.
I felt that there was, in regards to the repetition, yeah, the enemies are repetitive, but also just the, I guess, sequence of explore, then fight zombies, then fight humans, then explore zombies, humans, and over again. Felt like it was just a bit of a cycle. And I wish there was more exploration and stuff like, I don't want full QuickTime events all over the place, but I thought there would be a little more of that. Like there's a moment with a bus, in the sewer.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention the sniping sequence. I wish there was more stuff like that.
Yeah, they could have mixed things up, I think, a lot more.
Because when you get to that sniper gun later, and it's almost like kind of an on-rails shooter for that portion, that was an awesome, fun way to break up the gameplay. And I think, they have a lot of chase sequences too where you're running away, but those feel a bit on rails. And it's still kind of inspired by the original Crash Bandicoot. Like the Naughty Dog always has those chase moments that feel like reskinned versions of Crash Bandicoot to me when I'm playing, and I still love them. But they could have used more. Even Uncharted has sections where you're in a vehicle shooting other vehicles. It doesn't fit the story that much, but in spirit, those type of moments could have been
that's what I thought when you find a car, that there was going to be some element of that, but there isn't really. And even stuff like when you're problem solving, a lot of that is repetitive, where it's like, okay, we're in the sewer, there's water, I'm going to go get the wooden raft, carry it over to her, she's going to get on, and then...
They even make a joke about it, right? Oh, this again, I'm getting...
Right, I know
the deal here.
It has to happen like 10 times or 8 times or something throughout the game. So even that, it's like, if there's a problem and there's water, it just turns into, where's the wooden raft? But one thing I did like was going underwater. I thought it actually felt dangerous, and it felt like you were underwater. I find usually it just feels like you're going under a layer and the color's just different. Yeah. But this actually feels underwater.
Yeah. Just on that topic of what you guys are talking about, I was just going to say maybe this was a criticism I have of the game, and it may not be entirely fair, but the whole time I'm thinking, this is by the people who made Uncharted. It's obviously built on a similar engine. And, Uncharted had so many great, unique moments and set pieces that are a little bit different. And they had a few. And again, I'm only about halfway, like Andrew. Like, there's a section where you're hanging upside down, things like that, where it's totally unique and different. But, there's that. And then there's just the fact that, like, in Uncharted, you can climb, you're so much more mobile. And then in this game, you can't do a lot of that stuff. And I know it's kind of a survival horror thing, and they want you to feel like, kind of enclosed and unable to get away, and they add the tension. But it's just, knowing that it's by the same people, I was like, I kind of wish I could do more of this climbing and stuff.
It's just such a hard game to judge. I love the game. There's so many things that this game does better than any other game I've played before. But it felt like a bit more of a chore to finish it than some other games. And
it was reminding me a little bit of Alan Wake, which I know when we reviewed that way back when, we both felt like it was going on too long and it was a bit of a chore. This is way better than Alan Wake, I think, but I still think I don't know, it felt like at times I was reminded of that, and not necessarily in a good way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just it blows my mind in so many ways, and I feel like I'm almost trying to find things that are wrong with it when maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should just be embracing everything I love about it. It's just such a weird game for me to think about and talk about that I don't even know. Like, if we were going to give star ratings for this, I don't know what I'd give it. Like, I kind of want to give it a 4 out of 4, but I might. I don't think it's a perfect game, but like, is Halo 4 a perfect game? No, it's
Yeah,
just,
it is.
it's really good. Like, I'm sure if I started attacking some of the things in Halo, like Halo's repetitious too. Like it's weird, and I appreciate this game for trying to do something different. Like, so few games stick to the same thing, that at least this is trying to do a different type of narrative, and I think it succeeds in what it's trying to do, and it just is a little longer than I'd hoped it would be. Most people would say they like it when games are longer. I just wish this game wish this game was a bit shorter.
But okay, like you're saying that you think the game is, trying to do something different, but I know this was something we talked about when, it was first announced and stuff. Like, do you feel that this is just another zombie game? Like, do you feel it's too similar to other zombie games, or?
I did not feel I was in a zombie game
No?
at all. No. I felt I was in an action adventure, almost a drama game, if that even makes sense. That's what it felt like.
I know when you play games, you have to kind of just go with the flow, but it really does kind of come down to just how they're skinned.
Yeah.
There's zombies and there's humans.
Right.
Like, they have different, each one has a different, one's blind and you sneak around, one runs at you, and, but in terms of it being a zombie game, it's just that they look like zombies. It could be any type of enemy, right? So I mean, that would be something where I would like something that's more, I guess, a defining characteristic between the two. Because there were certain points where I felt like I was sneaking around, and it's like, this really doesn't feel that much different than when I'm sneaking around the zombies or whatever they are, the infected, other than, that they're supposed to be blind or whatever. But I don't know. Even with that, I felt that the first time I was in a room and it established they can't see, you have to be quiet, I felt kind of suspense there. But again, with the repetition, eventually it kind of felt like a chore. It was just, and you do have options of, okay, well, I can throw a Molotov cocktail and then let them burn for a while and then run by or whatever. But it just felt like those sequences were kind of getting in the way of just exploring the world and letting the mood and the atmosphere just wash over me.
I'm kind of with you, though, with the washing over you. Because in the first half or whatever that I've played, I felt like the world itself is so fleshed out that I could envision myself in that scenario, probably like good movies do also, right? Whereas in other games, it's very obvious you're playing a game. Whereas in this one, particularly when you get to the spot where the guy has all the traps laid out, you kind of go a little more cautiously because there is the potential for traps around any corner. So you're looking in the environments much more, which would never be... You'd never be able to do that in any previous generation of games, right? You just wouldn't have the high-quality graphics that you can represent that with.
Can I add one point to that?
Sure,
just the idea of the lighting, the real-time lighting, and your flashlight, how that plays in with the camera and using... literally manipulating your body and your crouch position to search different areas with the direction of light adds that whole, I need to physically move and search areas rather than just, I
rotate the camera.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I will say, graphically, I think the thing that is most important for me is lighting and just making it feel not necessarily real, but reminding me of something that's real. And but in terms of the combat, I found that early on in the game it was more effective when you would be hiding from people rather than engaging in combat head on, even stealth combat. Like I think there's a point where you're kind of running around near a sewer or something and there are trucks driving by above and you have to stay quiet and you don't want them to find you. That, in the world of this game, was way more effective than going into a sewer and sneaking around a bunch of creatures for the 5th time. So I just feel like maybe the impulse to have combat throughout the game can kind of get in the way of that mood setting. Like, I understand it's a game, like you have to have combat in it, but if it was a little more sparse and just used, you know, with purpose and to build tension a little more and allow you to just explore and avoid a lot of combat, because I would think within this world, after a while, it's like, okay, they'd be dead long ago.
And there's huge parts of the game where it skips,
right,
like several weeks or months.
And there are things you can't help, like dying, and then that breaking, you know, the reality of surviving. Like the whole point of a story like this is survival. We have to survive to get from this side of the country to this side of the country, and when that extreme point of survival is continually broken every time you die, it's just it becomes a suspension of disbelief. You just have to accept that you're playing a game. But when you're accepting that you're playing a game, you're I think in some ways abandoning the accepting that it's a real story as well. Like it's a very weird, and it's probably just a problem with games in general that are story based, is it's asking you to do two things: to allow yourself to have this passive experience with everything that's happening between combat, and then continually breaking that with this need to engage when it always isn't necessary, other than just to remind you that you're playing a game.
I think what would be interesting for me to see is, like you were mentioning there, the scope of the game is to travel from the East Coast to the West Coast, right? So that's a huge scale. And how do you represent that in how long did it take you to finish the game? Like 15 hours or something?
For me, it was over 20.
20 hours. Okay, so over 20 hours, you have to maintain a pace and tension and suspense and all these elements that drive the player and make it interesting. That's a hard thing to do. I would like to see, like, I feel like the beginning of the game to me, in a sense, felt similar to the Alien movie, Alien 1, where you are exploring unknown territory. It's suspenseful. You don't really know what's around the corner. And I would like to see them take this style of game, Naughty Dog or whoever, and put it into a 2-hour, smaller scope game, like, you know, probably not an Alien setting, but something with high tension, little combat, but I think it would be really interesting, but at the same time, you'd probably run into the exact same things you're talking about, where, you know, you see a glimpse of the alien or whatever, the creature, and it adds a lot of tension, but how do you make it impactful without making it feel like a game?
Well, what I would do in that case, if it was a 2-hour game, I would say death is the end. You don't.
Yeah,
and
sure, that would work.
The way you get around that is you have to be much more forgiving and give the player outs. So the idea of the clickers in this game can be very unforgiving.
Yeah, they're basically death.
Extremely unforgiving.
Whereas, like, I'm about to punch them with a brick, and if they interrupt that, I'm screwed. As long as they see me, I don't have a chance. Now, you could have it so that there's no such thing as instant death and make health a little more abundant. And then, you know what? If I die, I've had lots of chances to heal myself.
It's over.
I don't think that would work in a 20-hour game, but in a 2-hour game, I think you could try something like that where death is permanent.
Well, like, Jay, have you played Journey?
No.
So that's roughly a 2 to 3 hour experience, and I played that all in one sitting, and I think that had a pretty impactful response. Like, I had a pretty good response to that, probably mostly because I played it all in that one sitting. It was more like a movie to me, where I'm not broken up. The feelings I'm getting from playing are not broken up by a day of time that goes by that I'm not experiencing it. And I think if you had a game like The Last of Us that you could sit down in one chunk and experience the full height of tension that whole time, it would really change your perspective of a game like this.
I would even go as far to say is, I keep talking about the Pittsburgh section. I think you could take that whole section out. I don't remember anything that pivotal happening in that portion. It feels more like an extender to me of gameplay. And I mean, I didn't hate playing it, but for a tighter experience, that's something that could go for me.
Yeah, I mean, in comparing it to Alien, say, it would be like if in Alien they go to the derelict ship and explore it, and then they come back, and then they go to another derelict ship and explore it, and come back, and then another one for 14 hours.
Yep.
I mean, it's not that repetitive, but it's kind of like when you're telling a story, there are certain things that you have to give into in terms of expectations of gameplay, and certain things you have to give into for expectations of story, and it just feels like a lot of times those things clash. But with this, I think from the few games I've played, they've been the most successful, but it's still, to me, it feels like there's definitely it's oil and water in many ways. And the better the story, the more that stands out, I think. Or the more of a chance of failure.
Well, it's interesting you're talking about some of the moments that worked for you, and I think there were a lot of like the scripted moments early on where sort of you're being forced to run through something and stuff's going on in the background and it feels like this world is alive, sort of. And I really liked a lot of those moments too, like even
when you're in the car looking around and stuff's going on outside of the car, it's setting an atmosphere.
Right. And the thing is, like, a lot of this stuff you're talking about, like you're saying, you know, there's a truck going by and you don't want them to see you, and I have the same reaction you're talking about, but I'm 90% sure that that truck can't actually see you, and you can't actually, there's no game over there, but it's that illusion, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, like if there was more of that stuff pushing the story forward, going around on the periphery of the environment or whatever, like even an example for me is you're in that museum thing and there's soldiers that are coming to find you, and my initial instinct was like, okay, I run into a room and kind of crouch in a corner, and they actually come in, look around.
He cowers, of course.
Well, because I don't have a weapon, and I'm like, I can't take these guys on.
Someone stole his weapon earlier.
So they actually come in and look around and then leave, and like that was a cool feeling of like I can actually hide from these guys, and things continue going, and they're still looking around in other places. And but then obviously you do that sequence a couple of times, and it's, you know, it feels, and that's the problem with the scripted stuff, is it's the same thing over and over again, and then it loses its effect if you have to keep repeating it.
Well, especially in a game that's supposed to be kind of a thriller in certain ways. I would say, for me at least, like if you talk about what you have nightmares about, it'd probably be closer to that. Like you're hiding, there's people looking for you. You're terrified they're going to find you. If the nightmare then becomes you blowing them away, that's no longer a nightmare. That's a dream. That's a wonderful dream where you engage in an action movie or
fantasy,
something. Right.
Fantasy.
And I think that when in terms of this kind of game, I want to be manipulated more into feeling like there's a threat and feeling suspense and feeling scared. But as soon as you get out of that and you're just engaged in combat, it's less about it's less of a I guess intellectual or cerebral thing, and it's more of just a pure hand-eye coordination thing. Suddenly it's like Tetris. You have to aim the crosshairs, hit that, aim the crosshairs, hit that, and you're not thinking about story at that point. You're not thinking like, I hope they don't get Ellie, or I hope I don't die because then our mission will have been for nothing. You're just thinking about, you're not even thinking, you're just engaging in reflexes. And the more that happens, the more it interferes with, I think, the tapping into some story element that can affect you or manipulate you. And that's why some of those moments, like what you're talking about, or with the hiding from the car, hiding in a museum, or the stuff in the sewer with the bus that you might not be at yet, those moments help. Or getting the car started. That's an awesome moment. Those help in giving you that sort of adrenaline rush that's, I think, is no longer there for combat, because you're used to, I mean, that's what games are. They're combat. I mean,
so 2 points kind of stemming off that. I think those cool moments like that are kind of stacked in the first quarter and the last quarter, and the middle is missing that kind of stuff. And I know you're playing it for a different reason, but I just want to kind of defend the combat and saying that in terms of gameplay, I didn't find it was that reflexy. I was consciously debating which ammo to use, which weapons to use. So careful to try and get a headshot. So avoiding enemies until I could line up a headshot, not to waste ammunition. Just using a Molotov whenever possible instead of ammo. Using the bow and arrow. I mean, I exhausted all weapons at my disposal.
So did I, yeah.
So I really liked that aspect of the combat, and I just, in terms of shooting things, I thought they did shooting things really well. I thought that detecting headshots and all that stuff was, I never felt robbed of anything. And they have indicators on the crosshair for headshots or critical shots, things like that. I thought that all played
That's what those things are.
Yeah, it all played well to me in the combat experience.
I guess I'll clarify in terms of reflexive. Maybe it's not like playing Tetris, but it certainly is like playing a video game. Like it's you enter a room, a guy comes from this door, you shoot him, and then someone gets you from behind here, you die. Start again, I get that guy, and now I'm adjusting, and I'll get that guy. And then you just readjust to every scenario that's presented to you. And that's where it becomes reflexive, I think, is that it's just you do it over and over until you have either memorized the steps, or you're just getting better at aiming or whatever. Or this time I tried a bow and arrow, but I failed, so this time I'll try a smoke bomb or whatever. I mean, it's not entirely mindless, but it's just it does get back to the language of video games, of combat in games. I agree it's done well, but there were definitely sections where I just felt like there's a section on a beach where you have to go through all these cabins and get to this part, and it was like, okay, so I go over there, this guy comes out that door, I hit him, then the other guy comes this way, I'll hit him, and then like eventually you've memorized who's coming from what direction. See,
to me, the repetition there is getting up to that combat. In walking through areas, I felt that the areas were bigger than they needed to be.
I agree with that as well. I wish they had more interesting points. Like, there are sections where it doesn't feel like there's any threat at all. And if there's no threat, then there should be something of interest, like I'm sure a moment with a certain animal that you probably creamed over.
It was my favorite moment in the game.
But something like more stuff like that. If there's no threat and I'm just walking through a town, then have some moment like that that's of interest, that's cinematic, and that's
just beautiful.
Did you? Here's an interesting question.
Did you cry?
No, I was. I'm going to spoil it. I'm not going to say where it happens or.
Why don't you spoil it in the spoiler discussion?
I'm just going to say it involves a giraffe.
Oh,
that's a huge spoiler.
I bet it happens at a zoo.
No
spoiler.
No,
but it's amazing.
Channeling The Hangover 3.
There's just giraffes wandering around northern U.S.
Oh, the zoo's all. That happens a lot. It's in I Am Legend and other post-apocalyptic movies.
Apocalyptic.
Apocalyptic.
You know what though, Jay? The first time you said reflexive, I was almost thinking not the way you described it the second time, but almost just like, when you first said it, I pictured it more like games try to put you more into that character's shoes, whereas stories try to kind of tell the story of that character from a third person perspective. And it's almost like fighting those two perspectives. So in the game sense, in the reflexive sense, you want to, experience what he would experience when you see that guy coming out the door. The first time you're panicking, you're like, oh shit, like pull out my gun, try to get it. Oh, it's out of ammo. What do? I run away. And you're not really thinking about what Ellie is doing at that point. You're like, get me the fuck out of here. Let me reload my gun over in this corner and then try to aim. Mm-hmm. That's sort of like the reflexive I thought you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I do agree with your other version as well. But then it totally does take you out of that story for a bit. But in that sense, if they could somehow avoid the death and the second repetitiveness, then I think it would really accomplish the story as a whole much better, which I think is what you've been talking about, though. But I think you need that. I think that's what games can add to the storytelling aspect if they can marry those two together.
Mm-hmm.
The point where you feel like you're in that person's shoes, you're feeling their tension, and you're stressed out about it with the storytelling nature, which movies can't do, really. I mean, you can kind of do it, but...
And sorry.
Just without... Because we're going to get to spoilers a little bit, but if there's a goal and you have to... Like, I think you want to feel like you've gone on a journey, right? And look back on it and think, wow, that was wild. I can't believe I survived. But then to think back, it's like, well, I didn't really survive. I died 120 times. So it's kind of like it undercuts the, the celebration a little bit, I think. But
see, I thought Andrew was kind of going to get into this, but to me, the death is a rewarding aspect in that when I accomplish something that I've been struggling with, I have that, I finally did it, euphoria. And to me, that's a positive feeling. And I can see how you could say that doesn't necessarily fit the goal of the story. But I wouldn't say the goal of a game is to tell a story. I would say the goal...
game or this game? Because I think the goal of this game is to tell a story.
I kind of disagree.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's one... Probably
because if it's not
secondary
the goal... If it's not the goal, then the combat is not... If that's the goal, is just the combat... That's not, I would say the level would go down.
See, to me, the goal of any game should be to be fun.
I agree. That's my whole point with the frustration. And I agree that I will have the euphoric, like, oh, I did it moment if it's like 4 times in, 3 times in. But if it's like, I never hit like 20 times in or anything. But
I did on some parts, on hard.
Well, you're on hard. But if there's something I've done like 10 times... And in addition to that, there's a lead up that I have to keep covering to get to that point. I don't have the euphoric. I have the thank fuck. It's over.
I had a couple thank fuck moments. I'll admit it. Mm-hmm. But I kind of found that the checkpoints were really good in this game. There was one section which I mentioned to you on the way to the last Film Junk podcast that was the biggest one for me. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I thought there was only one other time where I'm like, really? I'm all the way back to here? But other than that, I thought it...
There was one in the tunnel with the buses and everything.
Yeah, the water. That's the second one, where there's the 2 bloaters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found one in the school. Actually, this is not... I found a better checkpoint, though. The first time, I was trying to do it exclusively with sneaking. And I was getting fairly far, and then I was getting killed. Just overrun by guys, and they killed me, and I ran into this thing you're talking about, Jay. And I did it probably 4 or 5 times, attempting it that way. And I was like, okay, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to kill some more people. And I found that so I believe that the section had 3 guys in it. After I killed those first 3, I got a checkpoint. Mm-hmm. Whereas before I was trying to pass 10 guys and not get a single checkpoint.
Yeah.
And then dying and coming all the way back. So I think if you play it their way, the checkpoints are better. Mm-hmm. But if you try to go a little outside of the way they planned it for you, it kind of falls apart a bit. But overall, I've only found that one situation so far.
Yeah.
I found it pretty good, though. But I do know that it can be frustrating. That one was frustrating for me, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there weren't a ton of frustrating moments like that, but just the ones that were frustrating stood out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And then it just makes someone like me who's not a natural-born gamer... You start to think like, why am I bothering doing this? But so I had to do it for the show.
Of course.
But I mean, some other things that are just kind of probably unfair it's not really criticisms, rather than observations of just kind of, again, the language of playing games is when, you get to a giant room, and we've established earlier that, I've moved a dumpster and put it in front of something to climb up. And then you're in a giant room, and it basically comes down to looking for the item that's animated or animatable, rather than just simply an item that I can move and climb on. Right. So like you get into a giant hall and you see filing cabinets, or the things with luggage carriers. It's like I could use any of these to climb up on that thing, but they're going to make me look for the one thing that I've seen before, either the dumpster or the, whatever other item. That kind of stuff bugs me, just because so much detail goes in everything that it's that much more noticeable when you can't interact with the items that they don't want you to interact with. And then there were a couple moments, and this is probably more just my lack of experience, where I'm not entirely sure what the goal is for me. Like with the tank, there were a couple moments where I just sat there trying to kill the tank, not knowing that the goal is to just run around it instead. And I'm like, 5 times in, I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And it's just like, oh, you're just supposed to run around it. Kind of stuff is...
Stuff like that, that's where you have a little soundbite from one of the characters saying like, oh, we should try running around or something like that. But
if they said it, I didn't hear it.
No, I mean, they should. There's definitely moments like that I can think of where they should have. Like, there's stuff where I was doing something over and over again a few times, and I was like, oh, this isn't even.
And it's like the dumbest, easiest example of what you should be doing. And
I should take a shower before I go downstairs.
Right.
We should probably wrap this up, but I just wanted to ask Frank. What's the jumpiness factor on this game? Was it
very low? Yeah, surprisingly low.
I thought it was low too.
Refreshingly low. I'd say.
I was expecting like a Dead Space kind of experience, and there was only 1 or 2 moments where you go through a door and something jumps out at you. Or
it comforted me.
Yeah,
it was nice.
I think
it's because you're just constantly sneaking around things.
A couple of surface level observations. The pre-rendered scenes to me actually look worse than the real time scenes.
I think I agree with that. Yeah.
I'm sure there's obviously some higher fidelity models in those.
They're probably hiding loads.
That's true too, but
there's compression.
Yeah,
right?
I wish it all would have been real time. The real time stuff looked that good to me that even the older games like Nintendo 64 games, I would prefer real time blocky scenes. That's a whole level of. I love when a game exists totally in its engine, and that's probably what's going on. I see it, but I would have preferred real time stuff. And then I mentioned the giraffe moment briefly, probably one of my favorite all time moments in a game, and just the giraffe looks so good. It looks so much like a real giraffe. My mind was blown.
Did you shoot it?
No, there was that game Africa where you just take pictures of animals and which I'm still waiting for mine, which I ordered from Video Games Plush. Plush. What is going on with that?
They sell stuffed animals of video game characters.
So I want a game by Naughty Dog where it's just animals. I want to see them recreate the magic of the animal kingdom.
African Lion Safari, the video game?
Essentially. Whatever it is, I want it. Because it looks that good.
And I will say as a final thing for me, just stress the point of how much I enjoy, I guess, kind of the set piece in video games where, and again, like we said, most of it comes in the first half, I think, or the first act, where you're like in the house and you go into an empty room and there's a window and you look out of it and there's an explosion in the distance, and just that idea of feeling like there's stuff happening and it's natural and it's just setting up an atmosphere or a mood. But and also, I mean, in comparing this story to movies or stories that have come before it, I think this is a good story, but it is hard not to look at the main character and not think of Viggo Mortensen in The Road immediately. If you look at him and then look at the Blu-ray cover of The Road, the US one, it looks exactly like the same guy. And then you can even his kid in the movie, because he's a young boy, he can pass for a young girl a little bit, I think.
Okay, so does anybody want to venture a rating? Or
I will.
Well, I thought you said you didn't know what you were going to give it.
I think I've decided.
Okay.
4 out of 4.
I will give it a 4 out of 4.
I knew it.
Okay.
A light 4 out of 4.
Light 4 out of 4. Okay. Jay,
I'd give it a 3.5.
It's pretty solid.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not rating it. I haven't finished it, so
it's a little hard to say.
I would say after playing it as much as you guys played it, I was a definite 4 out of 4.
I'm pretty much at that feeling right now.
I'm at like a 3.5 probably right now.
I would say, fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say.
Well, just to jump in while you remember, we didn't mention the audio, but the audio is amazing. the soundtrack.
I like the score a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, the just like the ambient sounds of like leaves rustling and papers blowing and stuff all around you all the time, and you know the wind in the trees is always around, and I don't know, they just do a really good sound design. I mean, the Uncharted games had it too, so it doesn't surprise me, but we should mention it, that it's amazing.
Although the one thing that kind of bugs me about that is the way they try to play the, like, you know, you turn your back on a character and suddenly they're in the rear speakers and they've got this heavy reverb on them, like suddenly they're miles away or something, or you're in a great hall.
Oh, yeah, if you go in a different room.
Right, and you're walking away from them and they get quieter. I don't know if that's something I personally necessarily need to maintain the illusion that I'm walking with someone. I would be fine if, like in movies, if the camera is shooting from a distance, a conversation happening in a restaurant, you hear the conversation clearly. I don't think the characters need to, you know, go off into the distance when you walk away from them. To me, it just is frustrating because I hear them talking. I'm like, oh, do I need to hear that? Should I run back and just play it at the same volume?
Subtitles. Get on it.
You haven't played many games, but recently what they've been doing to solve that is they have like a walkie-talkie essentially that clicks on when you get too far away, so that you can still hear the conversation fully. That's like the gameplay mechanic of it. But
I mean, that I guess makes more sense. But actually, it reminds me of one thing.
Me.
I don't know if you read everything that you pick up.
Not towards the end. I wasn't. At first, I was trying to read every note I found, but
I have been so far.
I didn't read like the grocery
I don't do that
lists.
at all. Okay.
I mean, one of the first things I picked up in the game is there's this map, and I was trying to read it, and it was so hard. I was like, do I actually have to, like, does this tell me where I need to go? I was like, I can't follow this. Like, I was really scared and frustrated, but then it doesn't.
Well, I can confirm that you can successfully beat the game without reading a single thing that you pick up. So
good to know.
It makes you question why they're even there.
I remembered my thing,
like Andrew said,
for the rating.
You learn about the gay man.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right.
I'll say this: upon completing this game, I did not have the urge to start it up again, which I have had with other Uncharted games, Resistance games, Tomb Raider.
That says right there that the story is more important than the gameplay.
But like Bioshock Infinite, I played it again on 1999 mode right away. With this game, I was like, I don't know if I want to play this game again right away.
So it sounds like basically you're putting the Lone Ranger story ahead of this because you went and watched it right again.
Well, the Lone Ranger isn't a 20-hour commitment.
That's true.
Pretty close.
It feels like a 20-hour commitment.
Well, just listen to the score then. It's a brisk hour.
Let's get on to some other stuff that we've played. I don't think there's a ton of stuff.
I'll go very quickly.
Go ahead.
Okay. When I got back into my little Xbox fling, got back into Viva Pinata for a brief period of time, which is still one of the best games I've ever played. I love it, and the character design and art is fantastic.
Like top 10 all time?
Probably, yeah.
What do they call it again? The romance dance?
Yes. And also played Gunstringer, which I had never played, which is a Kinect game where you control a shooter.
That was one of the few Kinect games I
bought
kind
it
of interested
after trying it, so it is awesome.
Yeah?
Yeah, I
so
really liked it.
What, like...
It's kind of like Star Fox or Panzer Dragoon, where one hand is controlling the character and one is highlighting things and shooting.
Okay.
So it's pretty fun.
Cool.
And also, after Graham talked about it, I finally played The Room on iPad.
Yeah, nice.
Which is a puzzle game, like a contraption puzzle solver, where you're figuring out, you have this contraption on a desk and uncovering its layers and solving puzzles and tasks and contraptions all surrounding it. It's hard to explain. It's almost like Myst in a room, I guess.
Well, this is a whole genre of game, I think, right? Like just sort of the hidden objects in a room, like you're in a room, you have to try to get out of the room, kind of.
It's not like that at all.
No?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's unlocking.
You're breaking into a safe or something.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
like the craziest safe. You would honestly love it.
Well, I did download
It'd be a mindfuck next month.
Okay. Well, I did download the iPhone version, which is free apparently.
It's
so
really good.
Oh,
so
really?
check it out.
I'm loving that game so far. And I think that's honestly all I've really played. I revisited some sports games, FIFA, NHL, which I'm liking more. And that's about it for me. It's been slow month and a half.
It's the summer drought.
Yep. I can go into mine pretty quick. I picked up Ni no Kuni. I played maybe like 2 hours, so I can't really say too much, but I'm enjoying it so far. I'm going to hopefully play more after this stint of games is done. The main thing I've been playing, actually, is I got into The Walking Dead. I finished episode 2 and 3. This game's pretty damn good. I like it a lot. Hopefully they can continue.
Which version are you playing?
PC, Steam.
There's a new chapter that just came out, right?
Yeah, it bridges season 1 and 2, apparently 400 days or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I've really been playing is Tomb Raider, which is incredible. I don't know. Have you guys played it?
I love it.
Yeah,
I've been playing it.
Get out of here. I don't believe you.
Jay hates it.
I'm not a fan.
Really?
I've only played, I think I'm about an hour and a half in or something.
I definitely would agree that the story is weaker, but the gameplay is incredible.
Well, I've found that there's too much QuickTime moments, too many QuickTime moments, and whereas in The Last of Us, where you have to press X or whatever when someone's attempting to bite you or something, I don't like when you have to press a button on a rhythm or you die. Or like if someone say like the moment where the guy's reaching for your leg under the rock and if you don't hit the button, then you die or whatever. I don't like that. I feel that's kind of cheap. And the one thing that I've done recently, it feels like I've done nothing. I've just been running around shooting wolves. And the one thing I have done that took way too long and made me very aware of pacing was I reached a door and needed to upgrade my axe and found that I was running around scavenging for wood to upgrade my axe, which doesn't make sense to me to begin with. And suddenly just getting a new axe to open this door turned into like a 10 to 15 minute search for wood. And the map was so frustrating because all the areas look exactly the same. And I hate when you're checking a map. It's like, okay, I have to go here. You go there, and then you check the map again, and suddenly you're down here. And it was the most frustrating thing.
Just to put it into perspective here, when I got to the gate where you have to upgrade your axe, it had already been upgraded by me.
I think it was also
that's
already
that's
upgraded.
a bit of the language, like just
it's just gameplay.
Something that if you play a lot of games, you're used to.
Could also be that it has sort of a half open world feel, and it's potentially that he just wandered through the wrong area and kind of got somewhere.
I think probably also
don't defend him.
I think
clearly it's possible to get to the section without having your axe upgraded.
I think Frank and I are probably also exploring many more nooks and crannies than you are, which will leave us to finding those pieces of wood or whatever it is.
I will admit I have zero interest in exploring nooks and crannies. I'm like a run and gun player. But beyond that, I mean, that's just an observation. The thing for me that's most damning is how little I feel like I'm actually playing. Like, there are so many cinematics and so many of those QuickTime moments where it feels like I'm playing Dragon's Lair.
It really is mostly at the beginning, though.
Yeah, it is.
See, but that's interesting because that's almost the opposite of your criticism of The Last of Us, right?
What do you mean?
Well, because you're saying in The Last of Us that a lot of the combat and the gameplay elements kind of took you out of the story and, were frustrating because of that. Whereas in Tomb Raider, they're pushing the story at you all the time, but you're not actually... Well, I guess you can still fail, though, because you're talking about, like, QuickTime events.
Yeah, I'm talking about how they use that, and it never feels like I'm doing anything other than hitting the square button at the time it says to hit it. In The Last of Us, they use that when you have to start the generators. I understand that. Hitting a square button 3 times rhythmically should be used for such menial tasks as starting generators that have no consequences if you fail. But when it comes to hiding in a place and a guy comes up and grabs you suddenly and a square button pops up, I don't want to just like, oh, I missed it and then I died and now I have to do it again. I want to be able to kill the guy with the gameplay, like the combat that they've established. Why do I have to press a square?
So that
what's fun about that?
It's kind of a cutscene, but you also are sort of interacting with the cutscene. But I think you're right. A lot of people are.
Well, then just
sick
don't
of
make
that
it a
stuff.
cutscene.
Easier said than done. But I can't wait to hear what you think of Heavy Rain now.
This is going to be the best build-up to a game discussion ever.
So I totally disagree with Jay. I'm loving this game, and
Maybe I need to play a little more.
maybe yeah. But I think the upgrade system is amazing. How you use all the tools. I think
I love how each area is like a mini Arkham City.
Yeah, that's right. The level design is perfect for using each ability, and I never found myself getting bored with any of the tools, and I find I'm constantly using many different weapons to do different things, and every weapon sort of has like a secondary task within the world. Like the bow, you can string it up to cross areas, and the shotgun can blow open doors and things like that. So I think I'm maybe 70% of the way through this game. I stopped so I could get a little through Last of Us. But I'm definitely going to go back and polish this off. I like how you guys talked about last show about how the tombs like open up the map for you and stuff. I really like that. Although I feel almost like the tombs are a little too simplistic at times.
I kind of like that it's one puzzle.
Yeah.
And it's not overly long. It serves as a cooler version of the Eagle Towers in Assassin's Creed.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I kind of get sick of climbing a million towers to unlock the map. I like that each area has 2 tombs, I find, and that shows me where everything is.
Yeah, I guess I like that aspect that it's kind of quick, but I almost feel like I finish the puzzle and then I almost always expect there to be more to do. I like a lot of them are like lift this thing, have it tip over, hit something else, and then it's done. And you're done. You're through. Like it's as soon as you get it, it's not overly complicated. But anyways, it's a small critique, and it is like optional content, so not necessary for it to be super hard. Yeah, the story, nothing's really to write home about, but overall, I'm loving it. One of my top games of the year so far. And other than that, just been playing NHL and the usual.
Candy Crush?
I've been playing a little Candy Crush, mostly Jurassic Park Builder still. So good.
Interesting. All right, I just got a few things. I've been playing Gunpoint. I don't know if you guys have heard of this.
I have, yeah.
It's on Steam right now. Pretty interesting game. It's actually, I guess, a guy who was, I think he wrote for PC Gamer or something, and just decided to try and make a game on his own, and now it's doing really well. But the idea is you kind of control this sort of spy guy, and you have gadgets and things, and you have to infiltrate office buildings, and you have a bunch of different things at your disposal. Like one of the main things is you have this cross-link device where you can view circuits in the building, and you can rewire stuff. So, if you have a guard on one floor and there's a light, you can rewire the light to like a light switch that's right beside you, and then turn out the light, and then he can't see, and then you can sneak past him or things like that. But it gets really like there's tons of stuff. Like you can even get rewire his gun, which doesn't really make sense, but like you can have it like if he shoots his gun, it will set off something else, and there's a lot of different options.
Like hacking, you get to hack your gun.
It's kind of like hacking, maybe modding, modding his gun.
So what did you say he was? A what guy? Spy guy?
Spy
so it's
guy.
hacking with Spy Guy instead of Dwy Guy.
Pretty much. It's kind of the thing that I don't know if I've read anybody mention this, but I swear his inspiration for it was Impossible Mission from the Commodore 64, because it's very similar kind of in the layout of the rooms and how that game works. But there's sort of dialogue sequences in between each mission that are, you can choose your responses, and they're kind of funny. But the weird thing is I don't really know if they actually affect, what, like I feel like there's people you talk to and they can offer you a mission or not offer you a mission. And I kind of just randomly choose dialogue that I think is funny, but I don't know if that actually affects where you're going in the game. So I haven't really been paying attention to that, and it's kind of weird. But the music is kind of this cool jazzy kind of film noir kind of soundtrack, and the graphics are pretty simplistic. the weird thing with the controls is that you use the keyboard to move, but then he has the ability to jump really high, and you have to sort of aim with the mouse to jump, which I thought was strange at first, but once you learn to use it, it's actually pretty cool. So anyway, pretty much loving the game.
You're force feeding this thing pretty hard, eh?
Would highly recommend downloading that one. And I picked up Hotline Miami, which recently came out on the Vita. This is also out on Steam. I guess it's actually on sale right now.
Today is the cheapest it'll get, I think.
So by the time you
$2.50.
hear this, it's no longer on sale. But this game, I had been hearing a lot of good things about it. Didn't really know too much about it. But I guess I would describe it as it's kind of like a Rockstar kind of game. Like it's almost like a Grand Theft Auto. And you play this thug guy, and there's sort of a story that plays out. But really all you do is you have a room, and there's, other enemies that you have to attack with like a baseball bat or whatever weapons are around. But it's so brutally unforgiving that it really is like this weird Twitch kind of thing where you have to plan every move, and then if you die, you immediately restart. So it's kind of got like a
Super Meat Boy.
Super Meat Boy kind of vibe.
Or like Simon Says.
Not
Exactly
quite
like
You
Simon
just
Says.
memorize the color sequence.
Sort of, but it's like it kind of every time it restarts, the setups are sometimes different. So it's not like straight up memorization, but it's crazy because like when you do it right, it feels awesome, and it like there's you hit this guy, and like if you can go through a door and it'll knock the guy over, and then jump on him and punch him a couple times and make sure he stays down, and then grab his gun and run around the corner and surprise that guy. But like maybe some guy was actually in the other room that wasn't there before, and I don't know, it's hard to describe, but it's very addictive. And I'm not generally, difficult games turn me off, but this is one that I just kept playing over and over again, so I was enjoying it. And the only other thing I will mention is an iOS game called Scurvy Scallywags something. I don't know. That's not the full title, but it's a pirate-themed Match 3 game, which I know, Frank, you're a huge fan of Match 3 games.
I think this is by Ron Gilbert, right?
Yeah, it's by Ron Gilbert, formerly of Double Fine.
Match 3
and,
games.
Yeah, you've heard of them?
I don't even know what that is.
It's like Candy Crush.
Oh, that.
It's like Bejeweled.
Those are called Match 3?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
What an amateur over here.
Wow.
Amateur hour.
So it's pirate themed. It's kind of got a goofy comedic tone to it, but it's got a strange mechanic to it, which I don't know if other games have done this or not, but it kind of is, whichever way you swipe to do a match, the whole board moves in that direction.
I think there was a DS game that did that.
Yeah.
Where it was half platformer, half Match 3 game.
Oh, that's
Professor
Henry Hatsworth,
Yeah.
which is actually a pretty cool game. But no, that's like I just mean like the Match 3, the grid or whatever. Like if you move a piece to do a match, everything fills in the direction that you moved. So that plays into your strategy, because there's items you want to slowly, like you have a pirate who's actually on the board, and you have enemies around you, and you want to kind of try to stay away from the enemies until you get powerful enough to fight them. But then there's items that you want to move towards. So it's kind of like, you're matching stuff, but you also want to move around the board. It's kind of hard to describe, but it's, I don't know, pretty
Sounds
fun.
like you played a bunch of games that are hard to describe.
Yeah, a lot of hard to describe games, but highly addictive and highly recommended. So check it out. It's I think it's like 99 cents or something. Not free. That's okay with me.
So what's your mindfuck?
Well, I guess Gunpoint would have to be it. I don't really have an official one this month, but
So weak.
so Jay, what have you been playing?
Couple things. Played some classic Monsterboy and Wonderland, Wonderboy.
In Monsterland?
Monster Boy.
Which I gotta say, this game makes me feel like $1 million. Yeah, played that. I played a little bit of Bioshock Infinite, which Frank lent me. I think I played about a half hour, 20 minutes or something. And I don't have too much to say about it because I only played a half hour or 20 minutes. But what I found interesting and maybe a little disappointing is it's got that sort of Art Deco art style, the steampunk sort of thing. And I like the idea of this floating city, and you've got these shops and the sideshow stuff and all that stuff. But then when you get to the combat, you're immediately reminded you're playing a video game when people's heads are blowing off and you're using your little hooky thing to like graphically decapitate people. It just seems so tonally inconsistent. Like, is there always a need to just, not that I love violence, both in video games and real life, but I don't understand in this game why there's a need to like have people graphically being beheaded.
I only played an hour and I found the exact same thing.
It's like
Come on,
overkill.
grow up.
Don't you think it's overkill?
No.
Why
It's underkill.
Why do all games have to be like
Killing?
not killing?
That's the
but
theme of Bioshock. These utopias created on the shoulders of violence and tyranny, and you're exposing it and part of it at the same time. That's the dichotomy. That's essentially the dual nature of man.
It's a microcosm of life.
that's why.
It couldn't be more poignant.
Okay, maybe I just need to play it a little
He's
longer.
got you there. He's
Yeah.
got you there.
So I played that, and I think Heavy Rain was the only other thing.
Let's get into it.
There's not much to get into. It took about 15 minutes to install it. And I'd say, in terms of ratio of gameplay to install time, I think I got about a minute and 30 seconds into Heavy Rain, which...
What? You didn't like taking the shower and...
I didn't get to the shower. I got to the juggling, and then I was like, okay, done. It was the most cumbersome...
No, wait a minute. The juggling turned you off, or the juggling you were like, this is the high point. The game cannot get better than this.
The juggling turned me off,
Wow.
unfortunately.
That beginning part is a tad slow.
I mean, even just the need to change the basic concept of like walking in a game, I could not. I'm sure you get used to it eventually, but I could not handle not being able to walk it through a doorway because I'm like pointing it this way and then having to press the button to go forward, and it's such a counterintuitive experience. And all of that is just, again, I've played a minute and 30 seconds, but all of this just to open up the analog sticks so that you can get up out of bed and make it feel like you're getting out of bed. And it's like, if you push harder, you'll get up faster. To me, it was pretentious. Like, just the idea of rewriting the books just to create this experience that's supposed to be immersive or some unusual experience. I did not have the patience. It was just like, okay, if I can't even walk, I'm done.
Well, I mean, I agree that the game is pretentious. It's ridiculous. It's frustrating at a lot of points.
Amazing.
I don't actually love the game, but I just think it's an interesting, because you were talking about just this idea of storytelling in games, and I think it's an interesting step in a certain direction that if they figure out some of the issues there could be interesting. Just because, most games, like you said, it's all just combat and killing, and this isn't an example of a game where they're trying to tell a story and get you through it without shooting every 5 seconds.
Well, let's add a huge thing. The reason why I thought you recommended it to him and why I did was based on some of his criticisms of The Last of Us.
Right.
In that you never die in that game. There's
That's true, yeah.
consequences to failing and succeeding. So it is a continuous experience that's different for everyone who plays it. There's obviously a finite number of outcomes. But if you fail a task, the result is someone dies or you don't get this piece of information. You never have to replay anything. It's just one experience, one through line through the entire game, which I thought you might find appealing.
I never got to that.
I know.
Because everything else was so horrible. I mean, it just, talking in terms of storytelling, I mean, The Last of Us is to the road and so on, whereas the first minute and a half of Heavy Rain is to like Big Brother or something. I mean, do I need to press a button and have myself say, I better take a shower before I go downstairs? And then I walk to the stairs by accident because it's so hard to walk. And then when I start going downstairs, I better take a shower before I go downstairs. Like, this feels nothing like reality. I mean, I would say I would compare it to before when I had said when the Wii came out originally, where, okay, so you get to hold a Wii controller and do the motion like tennis and think you're doing a virtual tennis, when in reality, that motion, because you're actually engaging that, feels more alien because it's attempting to get there, but it's not there. Like, you can put the little tennis racket thing on your controller and be like, oh, I'm doing the motion. But because you're doing the motion, it's like that uncanny valley effect where the closer it gets, the more it really is not the experience of tennis. Whereas with NHL, you can be playing it, and the art of that sort of design, or in Last of Us when I'm underwater, for some reason it feels like I'm underwater. I don't have to be in like suspended on wires with little sensors attached to my body and doing this to make it seem like I'm underwater. That's to me what the art of design is, to make you feel like you're doing something. Not to break. It's like that running game. What is it called?
Quapping?
Yeah. Quap?
Like, it feels like an extension of that, where it's breaking it down way too specifically, and it just is losing some element of fun, I suppose, in an attempt to reduce it to some reality that's just, okay, now it's gone too far. Like, I do want to feel immersed, but not this immersed. I don't want to have to go take a piss.
I kind of like having the option, at least. But
it was brutal. It was... I could not imagine.
Well, at what point do you have to remember to breathe? You don't even have to remember to breathe in real life, but in the game.
Yeah.
That'd be amazing.
There's
a button that you have to press.
Put a little like balloon under your arm that you have to like rhythmically. Not for me.
Go underwater. You
hold
your breath. You just don't do anything. Get out.
All right,
the breathing game. I think it's a pretty good idea.
Could be interesting.
Speaking of the breathing game, did you see Nintendo canceled the
vitality
sensor? You crushed.
Officially canceled it?
Yeah, like learn how to quit smoking, learn how to breathe.
Yeah. All right. So, time to get some junk mail. And of course, if you have questions, you can send it to filmjunk@gmail.com, because we still don't have a Game Junk address for some reason. But we'll actually start with a Twitter question from Immortal Hayete. Immortal Hate, maybe? I don't know. So this question is for Jay. What systems does or did Jay own, and what were the first games he got for those systems?
I don't remember all of that. I own currently the Xbox, the Wii, and the PlayStation 3. Never touched the Wii.
You had a Sega CD, Model 1.
I did. I had a 3DO at one point, and the other usual Super Nintendo, Genesis,
Nintendo 64,
Sega Master System. Yeah, I had a 64.
Whole bunch.
I don't remember the first games for any of them except Sega Master System. My Hero was the first game, the card version.
Pretty good one.
Yep.
Okay, so we had one from Philip. Now, he says he sent this last time and we didn't answer it. Is that correct?
I went back and listened to it. We didn't really specifically go into how they're done. So
probably because we couldn't. We were probably just skirting around it.
Well, I think you more wanted to know the process of how you decide what is a trophy.
Okay, I'll just reread it again. Yeah. So he says...
I got an answer, so...
How were the trophies in Guacamelee chosen? Do a group of people sit around and discuss what they will be? Do a certain amount of people on the game development team have to agree it's obtainable and then do so in order to see if they are fair? And why on earth would you put it on there that you have to play a game twice? Thanks, Philip.
Well, in my experience, it's usually a list generated by the designers of the game with maybe some input from the random employees, like, oh, this would be a good idea for a trophy. But for the most part, it's all designer driven and usually very unimaginative. And I would say that for most games.
Yeah,
so.
there's really no set like rules. Essentially, you go after like the obvious ones first. So like story and plot based ones, like skill progression based ones. So like Guacamelee, you get the uppercut. That's a trophy. And then like ones based on any collectibles you have. So like 50% of all treasures in Uncharted. Super obvious one to throw in there. Then like in Guacamelee. Like, did you complete the side quests? Obvious ones to pick. Really easy to do. And then after that, you get into more difficult ones. So, like the challenge ones. So, what was the one we were talking about last week or last show? Do 6 without touching the
special
ground.
Moves in one combo.
Right. So in that case, what'll happen is, like Frank said, a designer will come up with an idea for one. He'll play test it, implement it, try it out, see if he can do it. And then usually once he's sort of decided it's possible or maybe possible, then it would go to a slightly larger group, maybe the design team as a whole, and they would play through it, see if they can do it, see if it's fun. And then it might go out to the rest of the team and to try and play test, and then it would go to testers. So I wouldn't say everyone sits down and discusses it. It kind of starts at a small team and then sort of works its way up. But really, there's no real secret to how they're decided. Yeah. They're pretty straightforward.
And I would add on top of that, in terms of attainability, there's no guideline for that. It's as much as frustrating or as easy as a game designer wants it to be. It could be, I remember Fear on Xbox. Almost every trophy was impossible. They literally treated them like special achievements. You had to play the whole game without dying. Was probably the easiest achievement to get. And it was completely ridiculous. And then there's other games like the one I got every achievement on this show in the span of 2 minutes.
Right.
So it's just it's a hodgepodge.
Well, but I think the point to be made, though, is that it definitely is tested, right? So you're never going to have an achievement where you don't even know if it's possible.
The goal is not to make it impossible to get. The goal is to make it challenging but not impossible. In most cases.
The goal is to make you feel like $1 million.
That's right. Yeah, sure.
Now, I don't know.
The one about playing it twice, though, that one is kind of the same thing along like story progression. So if you have difficulty modes, those are really easy, obvious trophies to give out. And in the case of like PlayStation trophies and even Xbox achievements, you can give a higher score to a higher difficulty ranking, which does require more skill, but it's more time. So you are, in a sense, rewarded for doing it twice and doing it on a harder mode. But there could be a more selfish reason. I mean, it's not for Guacamelee, but other games could do it just to try to entice you to play the game through again, to make it go longer, so you don't trade it in.
So you feel like you're getting your money's worth.
Yeah, so you feel like the game makes longer. So like, there's a lot of people like Frank over here that love getting all the achievements. So if people can entice him to play the game 2 or 3 times in a row, that keeps the game in his machine longer and
makes me resent it more.
Yeah, but it makes someone else not be playing it during that time. So that's a tricky one. I mean, most people probably don't do it for that reason, but it could happen that way.
I don't think that's a unique one to Guacamelee, though. Like, there's lots of games that, you have achievements where play through it with this character, play through with that character, or whatever. So
I still haven't got all of them in Mass Effect 1. Play, like, the majority of the story with every character.
I got it.
Yeah, you got it? You son of a bitch.
All right, so Blake in Boston says, "Hey there, sexy game men. As I was playing The Last of Us, I noticed myself never forcing my grizzly protagonist to awkwardly jog or sprint through the environment. Conversely, I was always walking at a slow pace, absorbing my surroundings and attempting to fully absorb the world the developers have crafted."
Well, you were walking slow because they made you most of the time.
Things like half-packed suitcases, frantic notes left behind for family members, and coffee pots still half filled with dark, moldy sludge, all depicting a human world that ended in a moment, and yet the natural world carries on violently around it. Naughty Dog tells a great story in this game, but I can't think of anyone else creating environments this detailed and story-driven. Any other examples come to mind?
Well, I just want to comment on thinking about in terms of games and movies, like the idea of specifically walking around slowly to take in these details because you want to appreciate the work that's gone into them. I would say in movies the opposite is usually the case, where they'll put a lot of detail into environments, and if they were to stop and focus on them, it would be detrimental to the storytelling. You know, you get you always hear about like the Lord of the Rings set or something where they have, you know, coins or something on the table that are actually engraved with certain things, or the books in some room are full of
the Elvish language.
You know what I mean, where they put these ridiculous amounts of detail into things that nobody will ever see on camera. And I don't think that, obviously in this case, it's your choice to stop and look at every single detail, but I wouldn't think that they're there to be, you know, getting in the way of gameplay.
Right. So, but are you saying then that it can be a bad thing to have that much detail, that it like detracts and makes you want to just stop?
No, I just think it's stupid that he's walking around looking at half-packed suitcases.
I like that level of detail.
I do too, yeah.
And
I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just saying it should remain as just the world.
I definitely take in the visuals in Naughty Dog games more than any other game. And actually, and Halo Reach would be the other example where... Oh, no, Halo 4, sorry, and Halo Reach, where I would just kind of take in the backgrounds. They were that visually appealing. Those are the only games I can think of. The Uncharted series, Halo, the last Halos, and this game.
I had Uncharted 2, although it's definitely not as detailed as The Last of Us. The other ones I have are like the Skyrim, Oblivion, Fallout, but they do it not so much in like the moldy coffee pot, but they just have so many books, so much information.
And stuff.
Yeah, all the food, the items people have in their homes is like very specifically placed because they own it or whatever. Even like the time of day mechanic where, you know, a person will be at this place during this time of day is sort of a level of environmental storytelling.
When did this guy get such a fucking hard-on for Bethesda?
He loves it.
Since they bought id.
You see, these games are the worst. They're so annoying.
I'm just coming up with literalistic things here. And the other one I thought of, which is maybe not what he's looking for, but Shadow of the Colossus, in the sense that there is no dialogue. There is no like spoken story. It's all done through the visual environments. So although they're not detailed, they are the only thing used to tell the story, in the same way that the coffee pot and stuff is adding to the story. And then I was thinking, like, there's got to be something with like
I was just thinking of the phrase "the coffee pot" added to the story.
Yeah, that is shouldn't be said, but
it is a coffee pot still half filled with dark, moldy sludge. So
yeah,
that explains a lot of what's going on.
The other thing is, I think, like there's got to be some old adventure games like Full Throttle that have like the fully drawn out graphics that add.
Well, you know, that's
like
what
that
I was
too.
thinking of.
Yeah,
but I mean, the thing with those games is they're like, it's made for you to explore all these elements, and I don't know if it's quite the same comparison.
Yeah.
The only other thing that was coming to mind for me was maybe Half-Life 2. I don't know if the environments were that detailed.
No,
I just
and that's the
remember
thing. You can really
being...
only get that detailed in this gen, right?
Yeah, that's true. So there was a second part to the question, talking about Jay bitching about the hard and frustrating gaming elements of The Last of Us. And he says, unlike film, this medium has the burden of delivering both a story and a challenge, and I, for one, like the latter equal to the former, as I always play through the games on the hardest difficulty level. That said, I can see where a game can be so difficult it would turn someone off from even completing the narrative. Besides David Cage never allowing a true endgame state in Heavy Rain, what other games have attempted to work around this potential problem of challenge versus narrative? Sorry for being such a long-winded son of a bitch, Frank. Hugs and kisses, Blake.
I found Heavy Rain to be a challenge. Just walking was a challenge. Juggling was a real challenge.
Yeah.
I can't think of any other games.
Well, I don't know if it's... I mean, not games that are...
Here, it would be experiential games like hockey games or
just
anything.
I thought like Bioshock. Like even like Jay was talking about with how it's so brutal, violent, but they're trying to tell this like elegant story.
Yeah, but it's still, you can die and it can be frustrating, especially on harder difficulties.
Yeah, but I maybe I misunderstood the question, but isn't he saying like this, like it's kind of like what we were talking about with The Last of Us, where there's like the struggle between gameplay and narrative.
See,
yeah, but I think he's saying specifically challenge versus narrative. How do you balance the two so that you still will play through the narrative even when it gets too challenging?
I think you're kind of right though with Bioshock in the sense that you don't have to redo areas. You lose some progress, but if you killed a guy, they're dead. And in the first one, there's like that respawn chamber, so that
there are a few games
you're punished in
where
other ways, like monetarily, rather than having to redo stuff.
I think what we're talking about here is flow.
Flow, yeah, that's a good point, Jay. I think that's actually what we're talking about. But like, there's games like Prey, where it's like when you die, you kind of go to this other mini game state, and then come back to life, which is kind of goofy, but I guess it makes it so that the game never ends. Yeah, that's true.
That's cool.
But there's also games where they dynamically adjust the difficulty level in ways that they try to kind of hide it from you, which I'm generally a fan of as long as I'm not aware of it. Because as soon as I become aware of it, I feel like I'm kind of
They should adjust it and then tell you, we just adjusted it.
Well, there are games that have done that, where they literally just, if you suck, they will knock it down. They'll say, the game has been adjusted to easy level or something.
Well, on Last of Us, I once got a message. You are aware there are easier modes than harder.
I got that message too.
Nice. But I'm pretty sure that the Halo games, some of them anyway, have, like, if you keep redoing something over and over again, they might have like one less enemy the next time around, or little dynamic changes like that.
But just to add one additional point to the first part of it, I just, in terms of taking in the environment, I mean, I don't think it's stupid that he's doing that, but it does seem like it's going against the I'm sure what the makers of the game even want in overly fetishizing elements like that, like getting distracted by taking in all the work that has gone into certain aspects of a room or something. Like, look at the way the bricks glisten. And
but maybe this was like his second playthrough or something. He's trying to appreciate it on a different level.
I think the makers would appreciate that in a way.
Well, if they would, then I think that's lame. Like, you should not have the point of that. I mean, I know games are a completely different medium. I understand, but like, when you make a movie and say an effects artist creates a costume, a monster, and they hide it in the shadows because it looks better in the shadows. It's disappointing, but it's ultimately all for the good of the story and the way that things come out. And you should not hang on things like in Star Trek, the motion picture. The opening 10 minutes where you orbit the ship is a problem because it's fetishizing the work that went into redesigning the Enterprise at the cost of moving the story along. So I think when you're taking the time to just highlight all the work that went into things, it's...
But I guess the thing is, in this case, it's up to the player, right? Like, it's their choice.
Right, but I'm saying, I would like to think, that was in response to him saying that they would want people to do that. I'm saying I would like to think they would rather those things speak for themselves, and it all is just adding up to creating an experience that's immersive, and you shouldn't have to stop and look at every animation or look at unless, of course, it's different when you're working in the industry, I think, because you're appreciating work that you understand goes into it. And a lot of people, I'm sure, in the film industry watch movies completely differently as well and analyze things that the creators wouldn't want people analyzing.
The costume design.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so next up we got one from Falsk, who says, do you have a favorite video game trailer or even one that stuck with you? To this day, I still hear Sinatra's Somewhere Beyond the Sea and get chills thinking of the Bioshock trailer. What trailer over the years has amped you up the most?
Well, I wouldn't say there's a positive one, but a negative one would have been the Dead Island trailer. It's unforgettable, and I hate it. And it gets me very amped up talking about it.
Wow.
Mine was actually the original Gears of War trailer.
Same diff.
The one using the Donnie Darko song?
Yeah.
Actually, I do like that trailer, but I think it's been copied so much to the point where every video game trailer does that.
Back then,
yeah,
it was pretty unique and pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was something a little different.
I'll say I liked the Halo 3 trailers where it was the talking to the soldiers.
Like the live action
Yeah.
ones? Yeah.
And
those
in the
are pretty
museum where they're honoring the memory of fallen soldiers or whatever.
cool. Yeah. Yeah, those are pretty good. Yeah, I don't have anything. I don't watch game trailers. So, fuck it. So this one's from JP. Hey, Button Mashers. Since Jay will be joining you on this episode, I wanted to continue the comedy versus horror debate, but with video games. What are some of the Mayor of Scare's top horror games and the KOC's top comedic games? P.S. Thought I'd throw in some more nickname ideas. Sean could be the Hack Daddy, Mindfucks Deluxe, and the Retro Supremo. Frank could be the Disney Princess, the Animal Activist, and Hurtin' for a Squirtin' from Tim Burton.
I guess my favorite horror game would be, I already talked about Monsterboy and Wonderland.
Okay.
I actually.
What about Night Trap? Weren't you a big fan of Night Trap?
It's more of a thriller.
I actually struggle with comedy in games most of the time.
Not a big fan?
No. But in terms of games that I actually find funny, I guess they would be Conker's Bad Fur Day and Banjo-Kazooie games in a nonsensical type way. But I don't think...
What about Toe Jam and Earl?
I don't know it that well.
Pretty good.
I'll add with the horror thing, I always get which one it is mixed up. The Sega CD Jurassic Park game where you're being stalked by the raptor in the hallways.
3DO.
Or is that a 3DO game? Yeah. Very suspenseful. Cheapest trick in the book.
So that's all you got for comedy in games?
I can't think of any games I really laugh at. Can
Leisure
you?
Suit
Leisure
Larry.
Suit Larry is a huge one.
I don't know.
Space Quest.
Monkey Island.
I don't find that stuff funny.
Man.
Brutal Legend a bit.
Yeah, all the Double Fine games. What about
they're
Costume Quest or...
Yeah. Sorry, I'll say those as well. The recent Costume Quest or Double Fine games.
Okay.
But do you ever really just start
just
dying laughing at it? Has that ever happened to you in a video game? It's never happened.
Oh, no, I did. Well, the only time I've laughed out loud, and I would not say I was dying laughing out loud, but I did chuckle to myself a couple times at Portal 2.
Okay. So. That's the standard of comedy in games. You chuckled to yourself a couple of times.
Yeah, but it's
that's as good as it gets.
It's a different thing, though. I'm like Jay. I don't laugh out loud to myself watching movies that often either.
Well, I do.
Yeah.
Frank, have you ever cried during a video game?
No.
During the trailer for Dead Island? Though?
I did actually get close during Last of Us, though. Really? I almost welled up, yeah.
In the opening?
No, the end.
Really?
Yeah. But I'm really emotional these days. I've been close to crying a lot lately.
Wow.
Price is Right.
You're on the rag.
I don't know what it is. I'm just super emotional.
All right, so this one's from Austin in Japan. Hello, gentlemen of games. I was wondering if you have ever put in a ton of hours playing a game only for something to fuck up that sees you have to start all over from the very beginning again. Corrupt save, power blackout while playing the NES, etc. My top 3 are playing almost to the end of Earthbound on SNES, only to have it freeze and the save game wiped. Playing Dave Mirra's Freestyle BMX all day till the very last competition. Decided I'd save it and finish it off the next day, but as the game was saving, I accidentally dropped the controller onto the PlayStation, resetting it. Game save wiped. Lastly, playing Aussie Rules Football on the NES with no save capability. I played through a whole season, made it to the grand final. At this point, I needed to use the toilet. For some reason, I panicked that my dad would turn it off, so I screamed out, "Don't turn off the NES." Eventually, I made my way back to the living room, and to my horror, the NES had been turned off. I was like, "Why the hell did you turn the game off, Dad?" And he thought I had screamed from the toilet, "Turn off the NES." Disaster. Have you ever experienced game pain like this? Our good friend Austin in Japan.
I've definitely had a few times where I've had games paused and power outages happened. I've had frustrating examples of corrupt saves that prevented me from getting achievements and trophies that have made me very angry. Guitar Hero, Warriors of Rock comes to mind, where I can never get the complete game achievement. Really ticked me off. What else? I think that's it. But for me, it's more frustrating when I when I miss a trophy that you have to play through the whole game again to get, and I could have got it all in one playthrough. I hate that shit.
Yeah, I don't have any serious incidents like that. I mean, there was one of the Castlevania games on the DS? No, on Game Boy Advance, actually. I played maybe halfway through, and I went back to play it like last year at some point, and I think just because it was so old or something, maybe the battery backup, like, it was dead, but yeah, save game was gone. So that sucked, but it wasn't like I was at the end of it or anything. And the only other thing, I don't have a specific game, but I would just say with old computer systems, whether it's Commodore 64 or anything where you had floppy disks, I can definitely remember a few times where I had games on floppy disks where the disk got corrupted, and it was just like the most annoying thing.
Who was it? Was it you that was playing Final Fantasy for PC and the one disc doesn't work?
Yep, that was me.
Yeah.
That was really the only one I had, but I can't remember any other ones.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really like I had to go back. I just couldn't progress forward.
Okay, here's one from Mike Rott. Just recently started gaming again, my first time since the Super NES days. Listening to your show was the inspiration to buy a PS3, and now I find myself full-on addicted to Red Dead. So thanks for that. In return, I have a question to offer. I've listened to a few episodes and heard piecemeal your opinions on certain sports games, but I feel like I am always coming halfway through the conversation. So maybe this question has already been asked and answered. For purely selfish reasons, I will ask it anyway. What would you say are the definitive PS3 sports games, particularly hockey, but you can broaden the question to all sports games? Also, do you need those dildos with the white spheres on top to get the full experience? Thanks, Mike Rott.
What is he referring to there?
The
PlayStation Move.
Oh. No. I would say NHL series is really the only hockey series.
Yeah, but if he's looking for particular games, probably NHL 11.
I would say 09 or 10.
Sure.
Before it got
I'm
to
fine with
autopilot.
that too.
But at the same time, I would rather play with up-to-date rosters more than...
Yeah, I have a problem with the current... Like, I like 12, but I can't stand 13. I don't know. Like, I play a lot of NHL, but I don't talk about it on the show much because it's probably boring to everyone. Yeah, we've had a few outs, so I don't know. I'll probably end up... I'm not planning on picking up 14, but I'm sure I will, and we'll see what happens.
Madden is the football game by Monopoly.
Yeah.
Baseball, MLB The Show, which is exclusive to PlayStation.
Yeah.
FIFA for soccer, which I love.
College Hoops 2K9 for College Hoops.
I like NHL Free For All on arcade as well. So if you buy NHL 13, you get free 3-on-3 arcade for free.
Yeah, I like Top Spin for tennis, and I don't know. what's skateboarding or SSX?
Yeah, I don't know. I would also add, I guess, NBA 2K13.
Yeah.
But still, there's still no basketball games. They haven't recreated the
NBA
experience
Jam.
yet. I would say that's the most fun basketball game, for sure.
I like the Fight Night games.
Oh, yeah, those are
they're
good as well.
The UFCs I like also, which is sort of a spin-off of Fight Night, I suppose. But
See, this thing is like when you start talking about it and thinking about like current generation sports games. I mean, it's pretty much dominated by EA. Like it kind of I'm kind of bored of sports games because it's all just EA doing the same thing every year, and there's no competition. There's nobody doing anything different.
And I think in most situations, the newest game is the best. Like FIFA, definitely the newest is going to be the best. Madden, I don't know. I haven't played Madden since probably 2011 just because I couldn't stand the blocking and weird AI things that are now coming in to NHL as well. But I think like NBA, the newest is the best. Like 2K. Tiger Woods, the newest is going to be the best. I mean, golf isn't really a tough one.
For golf, I would even say Hot Shots Golf.
Oh, yeah.
For a cartoony golf,
I know you
is
like
amazing.
that one, yeah.
What about Mario Golf?
Oh, I love it. When Toadstool Tour for 3DS was announced that it was delayed,
Pissed.
I was crushed. Literally crushed. Worst news I've ever received.
Have you played a Pro Evo Soccer lately?
No.
Neither have I. I used to really like those games more than FIFA, but that was PS2 days. So I don't know how they've held up.
Stupid.
Okay, last question is from Steven in Ireland. He says, "Hi guys, great to hear another Game Junk is being recorded, and so soon after the last show. I recently got a PS Vita in anticipation of the PS4, and man, this console is amazing. The hardware is terrific, and with PlayStation Plus, I have over 250 pounds worth of games for the machine already. What do you make of the current..." That's probably euro, I guess.
It's euro.
What do you make of the current Vita situation? Will it continue to be mainly indie games, keeping the system afloat, and no big studio games coming anymore? Just finished Uncharted Golden Abyss, and it was pretty great. Also, with the PS4 on the horizon, I'm reluctant to buy any more current-gen games. Games like The Last of Us and Bioshock Infinite I have not bought until it is announced they will definitely not come to the PS4. What do you think the possibility of some games being ported over to the new system? Keep up the great work. Steven.
I think it's highly likely Last of Us will.
You think?
Yeah, and the GTAs, probably Arkham Origins as well. I think all of those will get double versions.
It's interesting because of the fact that we know already these aren't backwards compatible, right? So that just gives them another excuse to, like, let's re-release it, add some bonus
at the
content.
Canada Day picnic, someone there had some interesting insights on those pre-rendered scenes are higher quality models that they will probably use for the PS4 version.
I mean, I'm curious too about Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm kind of assuming that one will also be on the next gen. So the Vita.
Yeah, I like it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of big games either.
I think it's hard for handhelds unless you're Nintendo, just because of iOS is just so dominant that releasing like a $40 handheld game is really tough.
But I'm cool with the high-def versions of old games coming out on it, like the Jack collection's available now, and I'm all for that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of crazy how little has been coming out for it.
Or even just playing like PSN Classics and stuff on it.
Yeah, like for me, as long as there's, these indie games coming out, for the Vita and older games being re-released, that's enough for me. But I don't know, that may not be enough for other people. But I was surprised. I was looking at the release calendar for the rest of the year, and there's literally like Tearaway, which I'm really looking forward to. There's a Killzone game. There's the Batman game I mentioned, and that's about all I can think of off the top of my head. Do you guys know of any other major games coming out?
No.
Pretty rough. All right, so that's it for Junk Mail. So thanks everyone for your questions and comments, and that's pretty much the end of the show. I don't know when the next episode will be. Probably not quite as soon as this one was, I'm guessing, but
I would probably guess September or October.
Yeah, I mean, there's
GTA and stuff like that. So
there's not much coming out
Splinter Cell.
for the rest of the summer. But I'll run down some release dates, I guess, for basically August. Pikmin 3, August 4th. Mario and Luigi Dream Team on the 3DS is August 11th. DuckTales Remastered.
Ooh,
Looking forward to that. August 13th. Payday 2, also August 13th. Splinter Cell Blacklist on the 20th. Saints Row 4, also on the 20th. Lost Planet 3, is that right? August 27th. And then Madden is coming out, and then getting into September, you have Rayman Legends, NHL 14, GTA 5, Beyond Two Souls. This is in October now. And then Batman Arkham Origins, Assassin's Creed 4, Battlefield 4, Watch Dogs, and Call of Duty Ghosts. And I think that's pretty much all that's been announced. There's obviously, we don't know when the next gen systems are coming out or any of that stuff, so be interesting to see how that plays out.
Pretty good list for people who don't want to adopt to the PS4 right away.
Yeah. Kind of makes it actually that much harder, especially considering probably isn't going to be a ton of launch stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm notoriously not a quick adopter, so it's fine for me if good games still come out for PS3.
All right. So that's pretty much it. Jay?
Sleeping over there?
How was it?
Oh, it was good. I had a real good time.
Nice nap?
Are you gonna be playing GTA 5?
I might play. Yeah, I'll probably try it out. I mean, the last one, basically all I did was fly helicopters to the tops of buildings and jump off of them. But
that's pretty much all I do in them as well. So,
isn't that what everyone does in them?
Some people apparently play the story. I don't know.
For me,
weird.
that game is just a suicide simulator.
Okay, so stay tuned to GameJunkPodcast.com, Facebook.com/GameJunk, Twitter.com/GameJunkPodcast. And if you like the show, rate us on iTunes. Anything else I should mention?
Nope. Tell your friends.
All right. So until next time, we'll see you guys later. Bye-bye. Spoiler discussion for The Last of Us. Andrew and I will leave, I guess, and you guys can talk.
Do you have a lot to say? Spoiler.
Unless you want to talk about the first half and then we leave and then...
Not really. Want to just talk about the ending a bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let us know when we can come back.
Okay.
See you guys. Bye. It's kind of weird.
Just me and you.
Apparently the story is pretty important.
How did these guys not even play the game?
Yeah, I know.
Like, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, it is pretty embarrassing. I mean, even I finished the game.
I know, you never finish anything.
I know.
I made myself...
It's because I knew there was a show coming,
yeah,
and I was committed to doing it because I'm a guest. I've always wanted to be on it.
So, ending for The Last of Us. I had mentioned before, it felt a little underwhelming.
Right, I want to know what you thought the twist was going to be.
What I thought, and I'm not going to say.
Why, because it's so dumb?
Yeah.
Now I definitely want to know.
I'll tell you on the way home.
Wow, it's that embarrassing.
It's pretty embarrassing.
That, were they all dead? Or they were in purgatory?
No, I thought Ellie was somehow going to be related to him.
Oh, like it was the
granddaughter.
Granddaughter?
Because don't they skip like 20 years or something like that? So the girl, his daughter actually survives somehow, or
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
But it's kind of indicative of kind of how I expect a video game to play out, twist-wise. Like, that's something I could see happening in a video game. And I'm not saying I wanted that to be the ending. I just heard...
We're trying to call the trend.
Stupid video game ending, right? And I had heard there's a twist, which there really isn't, I would say. Not a huge... There's nothing twisty about it. It's a decision. It's not a twist. So, well, we can say it. It's spoiler. He lies to her and says that she cannot help mankind, assumedly for his own selfish reasons. I can't see another reason.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing a basic mirroring of his relationship with his daughter, and when he finally gets her to the hospital to get the vaccine, he learns that she will die from the procedure, and then decides to break her out, and then betrays her trust by promising her that she's not special, and that there are other people that have the vaccine, and so on.
And I kind of like the ending, and I like the framing of it, where they kind of cut away from the climax, and you see them together, and they flash back to him killing the other girl and stealing her out of there. And it was a nice change up narratively from video game stuff. So I thought it was good in that respect. It's weird that I expect some kind of crazy ending in a game, and I feel, I wouldn't say dissatisfied, but slightly underwhelmed by the ending. It's not that I didn't like it. I just felt after playing for 20 hours, it's an interesting ending to pick.
Yeah, I think it feels like they're setting up a sequel ending. And I mean, to be honest, I really don't even care that much about the ending. Like, when I hear about people, well, like if I hadn't finished it, I wouldn't have left. Which
I would have.
I don't know if that doesn't necessarily say much about the story, I guess, but just rather, I don't know, I just don't really care that much. But I think the ending, I mean, I guess it's kind of interesting in that it's kind of morally ambiguous, and I think his choice is dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that I totally buy the motivation of the choice in those circumstances. I don't buy that he's that impulsive and that attached to this girl that's just a vessel for the memory of his daughter.
Agreed.
With it being that that long after the fact, you would think he would be over it. Not over it.
Totally over it.
But in terms of over it enough that he would feel that sacrificing one person for all of humanity is a fair...
It's a decent
trade-off, especially
or for
when
him to have a buddy.
Right, right. Especially when the girl herself seems to be in agreement that she should provide the vaccine.
So two things. One, having talked about how if story is going to be this big a part of the game, you start to judge it a bit more like a movie rather than, oh, it's just a dumb video game story. They have to have a story. So you really start questioning those motivations, or questioning the idea of, is really the only way they can use what's in her brain by extracting it? Like, couldn't they take cell samples?
Yeah.
Or it seems weird that you'd need the whole thing intact from her head to figure out how to fix this.
Yeah.
You couldn't study it. You couldn't just take cell samples and find something out from that. It seems really weird that that's the only solution.
It's a contrived dilemma.
For sure. And then on top of that, you really start questioning, because Ellie herself gives this speech about her friend they were together when she got infected, and that's why she would gladly sacrifice herself for this. And you would think that same kind of motivation would almost apply for his daughter, right? Like everyone else's daughters who could be taken away by this. Or how many more people could have a new daughter if this threat wasn't in the world.
Yeah.
Like it seems very narrow-minded, and I don't, if that would be okay, but you don't get a sense that that's the way that character is throughout the game.
No, he seems pragmatic and he seems logical, and I mean, he's even resisting the memory of the daughter by resisting the picture and stuff like that. So I don't know. I didn't totally buy that decision. It just felt a little melodramatic and
convenient almost.
yeah. So I don't know. In terms of the ending, I wasn't crazy, but I did like the idea of mirroring him carrying her out, and him breaking her out at least adds an additional set piece, like an additional quest, I suppose. But again, I know they make it very easy to run out with her, but I got caught up with one of because the controls are a little wonky, and I ran into
Totally
a
wonky.
guy.
Not that wonky.
A little. Well, it's slowed down, and it's like the response time is not the same because it's supposed to be kind of dreamy, and you're in the memory of what he did at the beginning of the game. And I ran into a bad guy, and he shot and killed us. And then it like just restarted at the beginning of that sequence. It's like, really? Like you had to teach me a lesson for this little. If you're going to make it that easy to run out, and then someone like me fucks it up, just let it slide to maintain the integrity of the emotion of the moment. Do we have to like stay true to video game language in that moment? Or, I mean, that should feel like an on rails. It does feel like on rails. That's almost why it happened, because I thought, okay, whatever, I can't die here.
I'll be honest, I died during that portion as well.
Oh, here we go. Good.
But I didn't care.
You waited quite a while to tell that truth.
Whale of a tale.
But I did care because I thought it completely interrupted that moment.
See, I actually get we didn't talk about this. I get enjoyment out of the deaths. Like, the animations are awesome. They're gruesome. There's a lot of variety. I love that stuff.
I don't know that there's a lot. I don't know how many times I've seen that thing pull my
Right.
head, and then.
But when you're Ellie, there's new versions. When you die,
I would hope there would be new versions.
Right, but I liked all that stuff. That's the one plus I get out of death in that game is
I agree
the visual flair.
I agree for all of the other deaths. That moment I don't know why that moment requires a threat.
Okay.
It just breaks the...
Take a half a star off, man.
No, I'm staying true. I'm staying true.
We didn't really talk about the section where you think Joel might be dead. Mm-hmm. At that point, I thought he probably should be dead.
I at first was like, wow, that's pretty
Battlestar
cool.
Galactica type move. Switching
I expected it because I thought, okay, they're copying The Road even more. Because in the spoiler, have you seen The Road?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you know what happens at the end of The Road. So it was just following suit with that. And then when he's alive still, I don't know.
I had a tough time believing he would still be alive after a rebar goes through his stomach.
Yeah.
But whatever.
I will say I did really like attempting to, after that happens, escape when... No, not the hunt. Him escaping and slowly fading in and out of consciousness.
I didn't like that.
Why?
Just frustrating. Like, you're going so slow. This is one game I did think of. That is trying to imitate or recreate the agony of being in that much pain and trying to muster that amount of energy to get to where you're going. Now, there's a sequence in Metal Gear 4 that's very similar, where you have to crawl through this really hot area, if I remember correctly. And the way you do it is by mashing X as hard as you can, and you have to do it forever. But that, to me, by the end, when I got there, I was physically exhausted. I was drained. Your hand is getting sore from pressing X. And that, to me, was way more effective at putting across this vibe of like torturous agony of getting to somewhere. And I felt like just pushing forward on the stick and going slower than I normally would was more torturous to me as a gamer. I know I'm just going to press forward to get to where I'm going. I don't get that much out of it.
I didn't think that. I thought actually I might pass out.
I didn't.
You're one step ahead of the game.
Now, I love the hunting sequence when you start as Ellie and you hunt.
I like the idea. It took way too fucking long.
It's a little too hard.
Yeah.
I went through that area about 3 times before I finally killed the thing. And you hit it once, got to hit it again. It was a bit of a slog. I like it conceptually, and the snow looks so good.
It's pretty good.
That sparkle, that twinkle in the snow.
Actually, I liked the blizzard when you're running through the blizzard.
Yeah.
And the idea of actually being able to lose people in the whiteout of the blizzard.
I love the look of anything in the forest. Looked amazing. And the dam sequence. water is just phenomenal. How their players' clothes get wet, like his wet plaid shirt. Whew. Can't beat it.
Boner inducing.
But just visually the best game I've ever played. Story, I think they can come back in now, I'd say, right? We'll wrap up this spoiler discussion.
Hey, boys.
Come on in.
Hopefully we weren't talking too loud about all the spoilers.
Nope.
So that's the end of our spoiler discussion. Thanks for listening.